everyone, old school Pokemon here, back again with the PokeFlipz podcast, episode number 49, joined by my usual co-host, Catch 'em All Collectibles, Dan, and today we have a very special guest joining us, Squeaks from Squeaks Game World. Thank you for joining us, Squeaks. How are you doing today?
Great. I gotta skip an ad. Hold on. We're good.
We've got it monetized. We're good to go.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah. Well, I also didn't think maybe we'd all want to hear the ad played back.
Yeah. I've got mine on mute
great
too.
Mobile gotcha game though that we could all go blow our money on. So. No, I'm good though. I'm great. I'm excited to be here. This is, I think, well overdue. So yeah, and I got sleep. I saw someone ask in the chat if I got any sleep. I did. I know Dan was worried. Messaged me multiple times. Is this time going to be a problem? Are you still available? Will you be here? So we're here. We're good to go. We're ready to roll.
We're very glad to have you. So yeah, Squeaks.
It'll be a fun one for sure.
I think everyone here probably knows who you are, but we still have everyone do it. If you just want to give a quick who you are, where to find you, what you do, all that good stuff.
Well, who I am, that's a really deep philosophical question, you know? No, I'm my name is Sean. My online handle is Squeaks. I own Squeaks Game World, which is an online retail store for Pokemon, video games, collectibles, all that kind of great stuff. Yeah, that's pretty much it. You can find me at all of the social medias of Squeaks Game World. Yeah, that's it. I'm sure we'll learn a lot more today in 3.5 hours. So
I just linked
and
your
learn all your deepest and darkest secrets.
I linked your website and your YouTube because I just realized that I forgot to put them in the description. Sorry for that.
Oh, it's okay. The algorithm will figure it out. YouTube's good.
But yeah, we have a few questions from last episode. I think we have 4. So let's get right into that. Feel free to leave your questions in the live chat. I think Squeaks might have some of his own topics, some of his own questions for Nick or myself. So we won't necessarily get to every question in the chat, potentially, depending on how this goes, but we'll do our best. But yeah, first question. Do I have the right questions here? I think I do.
So anyways, we'll make them work.
Yeah, I think these are the right ones. So PokeKid92 says, question for next time. As someone myself trying to start and grow my inventory, I would find it helpful. And I've got it not fitting on the page. Sorry. Find it helpful.
Start to the podcast here.
I would find it helpful if you guys could discuss organizational tips for things like raw cards to sell raw to grade, slabs, etc., stuff like that. Just looking to hear what you guys do, as I know everyone has their own methods. Thanks. I know for me personally, people have made the joke that there's always something within reach. If someone mentions something, I can just grab it and show it on camera. I am not very organized. I have everything everywhere, but it's like I know where everything is still. I see Squeaks grabbing some random goodies. But
yeah.
Basically, Ultra Pro has a lot of, they have the card houses, they have the monster boxes, they have the dividers. I actually just recently, Squeaks and Nick won't see it right away, but these trading card dividers for the graded cards, which I use the graded card shoe boxes. And I used to go through, you'd have 50 to 60 cards in each side, and I'd have them, depending on the set, I'd either have them by set, ordered in the set, or I'd have them alphabetized. Well, I'd have maybe base, jungle, fossil all in one. Now I can have these dividers to actually segment out what's in there, same way I do within the monster boxes. So those are just some very general things that I do. I'm not the greatest with them, especially when I get like 1,000 card PSA return all at once. It is usually some time before I get all those listed, all those things filed away into the proper shoe boxes. And then sometimes you used to have 100 jungle cards. Well, now you have 350, so you got to go from 1 shoebox to 3.5 shoeboxes, and it's kind of a mess. It's always in flux, but that's a quick overview on what I do. What about you, Squeaks?
So for me, the first thing is I give everything a space. So like I make sure that like, okay, this is going to be the graded card area, right? This is going to be where I keep raw cards. This is going to be sealed product, etc. And that in itself, depending on how much space you have, can be kind of a cumbersome task, depending on how many things you want to get into. And for a lot of people, space is their limiter, right? Once I've kind of got that segmented out, though, and of course the space I'll adjust based on how much I need for each thing, is for like graded cards, for instance, I will sort actually by era. So like, I have first edition, then I have Shadowless, then I have all of the rest of WotC, Diamond and Pearl, EX era, Black and White, etc., etc. And then within that, I actually do alphabetical by grade. So like if you had like 3 Abras in a row, and then you had like a 10, a 9, 5, and 8, 5, etc. And so that way everything's super easy to pick and pull. And then same thing for raw cards, would be, by era alphabetical. Actually, when I used to do TCG Player, I actually commingled all the eras, and then broke them all apart by set, because I just realized it was way, way too time consuming to update the inventory by putting stuff in. I think that's the thing people forget about, is they like take everything they have, right? And they like get it all nice and neat, and they forget that they're going to keep acquiring things and have to like consolidate them back into things. And that can become really difficult and cumbersome with like raw singles, where you're dealing with like tens of thousands of cards all the time. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And then for things that aren't quite as easy to sort like that, I use a bin system, where I'll like have certain things with numbers and bins. If you guys have ever watched Cool Trainer Ryan, sometimes behind him you can see all those giant tubs he has. That's a bin system that he uses with, I assume, numbers on them that he can go find something. Like when it sells, he'll have a little tag or something that tells him what bin it's in to go pull it from.
Yeah. Space is definitely the key problem for me there. I have more space than I used to, but it's still a limited amount. So that's my biggest hurdle is I don't have enough space, and I would love to be able to just kind of fan everything out and keep everything in certain spots, but it's just not possible right now. But anyway, I do something similar to Squeaks actually, where everything's organized. So like with the WotC stuff, it's organized by set and then numerically, just because I know WotC very well. So I've just always done it that way. But within each other set, so like the EX era onward to modern, the sets are all organized alphabetically. So it's not chronologically, it's just alphabetically by the set name. And then within the set, all the cards are organized alphabetically. So regardless of rarity, everything's just alphabetical order. I found that's the best method for TCG Player to be able to quickly pull cards. So yeah, that's kind of a quick overview on what I do. Like Dan was saying with the I didn't know graded card dividers were a thing. I'm definitely gonna look into that. But they also have like standard TCG card dividers. Those are a really good thing to use for to keep sets separated. I would definitely recommend that if you're selling a bunch of single cards.
Yeah, the graded card dividers.
Yeah,
oh, I was just gonna say, I don't know how long they've been a thing, but I just recently was like, man, I've got 30 something shoeboxes of cards, and it's really a hassle. Usually when I have it divided by set, it's not a big deal, but there are a couple collections underway that I'm in the process of selling, like that big binder collection that I bought, where I don't have the shoebox segmented by set. I have it just like, hey, this is the collection with code 23K. I coded it that way because that's what I spent on it. So in that 23K box, I have legends, I have Call of Legends shinies, I have primes, I have level X's, and it's just tedious to go through, okay, there's 100 cards in here, I need that one, and I forget exactly where it is. But now I can use these dividers to like, at least, here's the level X's, here's the primes, here's the old school EXs, here's the gold stars, just to kind of further segment out what's inside of a shoebox. Sorry, Squeaks, go ahead with what you were going to say.
No, you're good. And that's like that right there is essentially a bin system, right? Which I'm not 100% sure. I could follow up for everyone, but I believe that's actually what Amazon uses, is like a bin system. Like they don't have like, oh, okay, this section's where we're going to keep all the Pokemon boxes, right? They essentially have like, okay, this is what we got from FBA from the day. We're going to like tag this with whatever barcode and it's going to go in this bin, right? And then they just have robots that like go around and do everything. But eventually like inventory scales to a certain threshold where if you're not dealing in, X amount of products and X quantity all the time or like X widgets, a bin system's almost what you have to use, because you get to the point where commingling your existing inventory with your new inventory together almost becomes too cumbersome to do. And you'd almost like have to pay somebody full time to do that. Right.
Mhm.
And so, yeah. But in terms of dividers, what I was just going to say is for anyone out there that's like, man, I don't have the stuff to get started. A lot of people probably open up ETBs. They always give you those card dividers in there. Just take those and put like a little get like a little sticker label and put it right at the top on that little lip at the top of it, and just label whatever you're putting in there and just use those dividers in between, because they'll stick out a little bit from the cards, and then you can just kind of use those to fan your way through. I actually used to use those in the 800 count BCW boxes, and I would just turn them sideways and then kind of puff the side of the box out to like keep them separated, and then I just have a little label at the end so I could just read them right down the row. And you could still close it. But if you're doing raw singles, by the way, BCW makes card house boxes. They're like 3x4 that you can put the 800 count rows in. You put a label at the end of them. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about, but like those are super convenient. The only thing I don't like about them is that you have to like completely pull it out, right? Having like a big drawer system would be better, but that's like next level steps, right? Initial steps, it's nice to just have everything right there. It's all in order. And then you can put your sets right in order right on your thing. So then every time you're packing and pulling, you just go right down the row. And then if you're hitting something that, should have been over here, but you're over here, you either pulled the wrong card there or you've skipped things or whatever. And it's kind of like a checks and balances system for you.
Yeah. And I actually used to use those more. I don't do as much with raw cards that I fulfill myself. But what I would do is I would take the 800 count box and I would cut the top off of it almost so I could use it as a drawer. I didn't have to take it all the way out and then open it up. I would just slide it out as much as I needed to grab the card I needed. That worked out well for me. But that's not something I currently do anymore. I still have them kicking around somewhere filled with some kind of bulk. I don't even know what's in them anymore, but those are nice.
Say that's mine are for bulk, and then those 800 row boxes actually that fit in those are perfect to send a single playmat in. Like, as long as it's a single playmat, you don't use too much bubble wrap, you generally can squeeze it in at 15 ounces, which is that first class, and ship. Yeah, it's like it's right on the edge. I've never had one kick back, so that's where most of mine ended up going, was just shipping playmats.
There's times where I've been on the edge, like 16.1 ounces or something, and then I'm just like cutting down the tabs on the cardboard boxes, trying to like lighten them out.
Brother, they're not. Just send it. Just send it at 15. I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah. Next question comes in from Poke Family Gaming. Do you think that smokers should have to declare it or list as damage on eBay listings? I just opened 2 boxes in a row that were packed by the Marlboro Man himself. What other quality of life changes would you like to see on eBay? I am one who I'm actually kind of allergic to cigarette smell and to cigarette smoke, and that smell is one of the worst. It bothers me the most. I mean, I grew up around farms, and when they're spreading manure, like I grew up around a lot of bad smells that I guess I'm just more used. Cigarette smoke is something I never will get used to. It's just putrid and awful. When I dealt with video games, that was the worst I've ever experienced it. I was flipping Nintendo 64 games several years ago, back in like college, and I would not run into it anywhere more than I did in video games. Here and there, from time to time, it's happened in Pokemon, where it's like these things were just in a chain smoker's house for the past 2 decades. And yeah, it sucks. Leave them in the garage, leave the fan blowing across them, put in dryer sheets in a tub with them, baking soda, like all these different kinds of tricks, and they all work a little bit, but it never really leaves completely. So I guess that's the long way to describe how my answer is absolutely yes. It should be listed as damaged. I don't want to touch any part of it. If it's something super expensive, high end, that I can just like, okay, slip it in a penny sleeve, slip it in a card saver, send it out. Because as far as I know, I don't think PSA would take off for the grade. But yeah, the way that some of these boxes, you open them up and it just hits you, it's real rough. And to me, it's damage for sure. What about you guys?
Nick, you go.
I,
I'll let you
I am not a fan either. I feel the same as Dan. For me, it was with my dad. He had a coin shop, and it was coin collections that would come in just reeking of smoke. And it's awful. That I can't stand that smell. So I would definitely say sellers should definitely mention that. And I would definitely value that collection a little bit less and be less eager to purchase it because it's like near impossible to get the smell out of there.
And Retro did say in chat, I just want to say quick, I meant to mention Ozium. Ozium is like a can spray. That's one of the best things I've found, but it's still not perfect. It's still like, it doesn't fully eliminate it. It partially eliminates it and then partially masks it. But yeah, that's one of the best products out there for getting rid of it, I think.
That's always something I've struggled with, right? It's like, so on eBay, first of all, you can condition list, right? So like, I know in video games, it's like acceptable, good, very good, etc. You know, other categories, it's new and used. I definitely think that where you can write out some of the condition, not in the description, but that little part at the top, you absolutely should specify, right? You're just opening yourself up to liability if you have items that have smoke smell that you haven't done that. And if you still want to purchase those items, I definitely think that you factor that into the condition, more so not necessarily inherently that the item itself is damaged, but that you're going to have to take additional steps and measures to essentially alleviating that smell out of the item, which is additional cost and labor of time that you're going to have to put into it, right? I bought a collection one time that it was too good to pass up. So I went back and essentially I took an ETB and lined it in baking soda, put the cards in it, and then I actually like sealed that thing for months. And I did pull the smell out, but I mean, you're talking a lot of time that you had to put that back there because a week wasn't going to do it, you know? And you know, one of those collections that you buy that's like, yeah, this is not going to be fixed quickly, right? And so you have to factor that in. And that's where then it comes down to the person having to decide, you know, is it worth it for me to sell my stuff at this discount because it has this? But if you do have a collection out there that has smoke smell that you're trying to fix, one of the things I found that I always made this mistake and I found now is better is to actually separate everything. So like if you have like a stack of cards, right, your gut check reaction is to put it in a box with a bunch of baking soda. Well, actually all those cards sticking together is going to keep that smell together. Separate all of them individually. The same way of like, you know, one big ice cube is going to melt slower than a bunch of little pieces of an ice cube that would make the same mass, right? So do the same type of thing, separate everything out. Again, though, you're talking space, you're talking time, you're talking, you know, and so, yeah, I think you have to factor it in and the cost has to be adjusted accordingly.
Yeah, I probably still have, I'm waiting for the day one turns up, but I probably still have a sealed tote or box somewhere where I just have a bunch of cards fanned out with dryer sheets and Ozium had been sprayed in it. Because there was like a few collections in a row. I'm trying to think what year it would have been, probably like 2016 or something. But I bought a few in a row, really good cards, like some really good stuff, some gold stars that I ended up grading, some and they graded well. Again, PSA doesn't factor that into the grade, but just such a pain. As you said, spreading them out. I remember days where my garage, I just had folding tables lined up. I had cards across them. I had a fan like lightly blowing air across them. Man, that sucked.
Yeah. I can only imagine. Okay, I have to ask you though, this Ozium stuff, because I've never heard of it. Is it just like a chemical spray?
Yeah, it's just this. I have a can somewhere around here that I somehow came across recently. But yeah, it's just like a spray. It's like a deodorizing spray. It almost looks like a can of like Lysol or something.
Do you worry that it would inherently damage the cards in any way?
You need to do it like indirectly. You obviously you don't spray this stuff right on the card. You spray this stuff right on the card and make it moist. What I would do, my strategy would be to just like spray that in the garage somewhere in the vicinity of the fan, so then the fan could just like blow that slightly scented air across. Kind of, related because it was dealing with smoke smell, but unrelated to Pokemon cards. Back in college, my apartment actually burned down, and all my stuff smelled like smoke. Some amount of it was like still fine, other than smelling like smoke. So I took certain pieces of clothing, certain, like, I remember my snowboard jackets, my snowboard pants, snowboard boots, things like that were perfectly fine. A combination of treating them with Ozium, washing them several times, and I actually took them to a place that called like an ozone generator, where they just like pump in a bunch of O3 to basically a small fixed atmosphere that helps remove. I don't know exactly how it works, but it just breaks down that whatever's left behind that leaves the smoke smell. So I guess if you have super high end stuff that you want, I mean, look into somebody who does ozone generation. I guess maybe is a possible option too.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'd be worried about the moisture though. Like pumping in all that air, it's gonna have moisture in it. Now your cards are gonna warp. Moisture is my biggest fear in this hobby. I think that's the most dangerous silent killer to cards that people don't. The card warp. I don't mind like cards have warped a little bit, but like when you start to get to the Pringles, I know a lot of grading companies still grade them like and don't dock. But yeah, the moisture is my fear.
I have an 800 count box. Back when they were doing the Rayquaza Keldeo Battle Arena decks, they came with those hollow energies. I believe it was water and electric were the two main ones. I have an 800 count box of the water ones that when I moved, I left those ones in my garage accidentally. And if it was a full 800 count box, like jammed tight, it probably would have been perfectly fine, because if they were just packed super tight, it was like half or 3/4 filled. Those things pringled like none other. Worse than I've ever seen anything. Right near like the exterior wall of my garage, near the overhead door. So like where the temperature and moisture swings would be the worst. Yeah, real rough. You're
lucky it wasn't completely full. That box probably would have exploded.
Yeah, because like there's only a certain threshold where like the resistance of the walls is going to keep those things flat. Like eventually the moisture is going to find a way in. So then your box is going to warp or something.
Yeah.
By the way, that can happen to cards in cases too. So like it's less about moisture getting in and more about like because like cards need some level of moisture, right? There used to be a thread on E4 where somebody had stored, it was either Shadowless or First Base PSA slabs in a safe, but it was an airtight safe, and they had been in there so long and didn't let it breathe that like all the moisture that was in the safe had just evaporated, right? And I mean, their cards warped in the cases. And after that, I was like, oh, we can't escape this. Like this is I don't know if you guys know QWA Chansey, but Chansey actually went out and bought an actual like climate controlled regulator that he could put his binders in and his slabs and everything and like regulate, like I think it regulates moisture and everything. But
it's
it
like
looks
a
like
wine. Isn't it? Yeah, it's like a wine refrigerator or something, right? Yeah.
And that was because of that thread that like happened, and everyone, like, people were freaking out. I was freaking out. I already am terrified of the moisture, and now I'm like, dang, I thought these slabs were like the answer, right? And they weren't. And but I think also just if the person would have opened the safe door a few times and let the air breathe a little bit and then reshut it, probably would have been fine. But it was definitely a tough lesson to learn. But
yeah, I advocate for fireproof safes a lot because of my past experience and just general safeguarding your stuff. But they do say right in the owner's manual that no one reads. At least read that part, at least know that part. You have to open them up at least weekly, if not, I mean, maybe they say monthly, at least monthly. You need air to circulate. They need to be able to exchange air with the outside. Ideally, you have your stuff in a climate-controlled space that's holding somewhere around room temperature. I mean, 68 to 72 degrees, 40 to 60% relative humidity. If you're varying wildly, like in a garage, in a basement, in an attic, in something like that, and you're going from 40F, 30F in the winter to 100F in the summer, and 20% humidity in the winter to 90% humidity in the summer, you're going to have a real bad time, even if they're encased in plastic. That's because I actually saw in person some cards that were left in a safe for like 6 months, 8 months when somebody was traveling overseas, and they were PSA 9, PSA 10 cards that were just worse than Pringles because it wasn't one uniform bend. it was like just wave throughout the entire card, really, really bad, as if you had just dipped it in the sink.
It can't bow, so it just bows where it can.
Yep.
And that's when I stored cards, I got a safety deposit box, and that was one of the things I asked him, like, is this climate controlled? Like, how regularly is the safe open to where, like, you know, they probably think I'm trying to like case the joint asking these questions. I'm just like wanting to make sure that my Pokemon cards aren't going to warp, you know what I mean? And but yeah, that's definitely something also, if you store your cards in like a bank or a safe or anything like that's to ask them those questions and make sure that where you're storing them is, you know, going to be conducive to not making sure that what you were doing to try to protect them actually ends up being the thing that damages them.
Yeah, definitely. Brandon Baker has a question. If you want to take this one first, Squeaks, so you can go first on one. Question for the next episode: is the new 151 set that has been announced the best way to reintroduce Kadabra to the TCG?
Yeah, why not? What else are they gonna do, right? Like, here's the Kadabra set, and like, oh, every Kadabra we should have printed over the last 15 years, Kadabra level X, you know, like, no,
Kadabra
like,
Prime, Kadabra Legend,
I think like, yeah, like low key, just make a set, include Kadabra in it, like, you know, I actually, I don't know where I was even seeing people this morning were talking about this, that like, you know, I believe his name's Yuri Geller or Young Geller or whatever. That's like what it was based on, the Japanese name. Has been like very much on a kick of like, I'm sorry, Pokemon, like I shouldn't have done this, blah, blah, blah. And like, I think he said it was because maybe one of his grandkids or niece or nephew, somebody related to him was like really into Pokemon now and felt bad about it. I'm not really sure about the whole story or anything like that, but clearly now they are allowed to move forward with Kadabra. But I also think it's one of those situations where maybe not making a big deal out of it, right? Because like you don't want to like essentially give more publicity to like essentially what was bad acting, I think. Like, and so I you know, if Pokemon would have only made Kadabra, right, I think then that would be like a case of like, wow, maybe they stole his identity, you know. Like they made 151 Pokemon, right? Like it wasn't like, I don't think that was like some targeted insight where they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna see how many of these things we can copy from all over the, you know. So I don't know. I've got like very strong like opinions on this because like I actually like Abracadabra and Alakazam, and I think that's just like crazy this whole thing went down the way it did. But I think it's cool that it's like getting fixed. But I think you just like low key it, just pop it in the set. Everyone else will make it what they want it to be and move forward with your life. That you now have your full Pokedex back. So, what about you, Nick?
I'm pretty impartial to this. I was gonna say. Does anyone actually even care about Kadabra? But then you just said you liked Kadabra. So I guess one person likes Kadabra.
Well, I always like Sabrina, right? And like Sabrina's Alakazam, you know, I got one for Christmas one year for my parents, and like they didn't like do Pokemon, you know, my mom took me to Pokemon League and stuff, but like they went and found a card shop and tried to like pick out singles that they thought I'd like instead of just like being like the parent that goes and buys a few booster packs at Walmart. Like, here's what you get for Christmas, you know? And like, I remember it was a base set Magneton, a base set Gyarados, and a Sabrina's Alakazam. And like, the Alakazam is the one that really stuck with me because it was Japanese. And it was, you know, it was like that, like, dang, they really tried, you know? And like, so then Sabrina like became my favorite gym leader. And then I, you know, so I liked Alakazam. So then I liked the whole line. And yeah, so that's how it became.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I'll give you that one. But yeah, I agree with you, Squeaks. I think just throwing it into the set would be the way to do it. I don't think they should do any like big special event with a whole Kadabra set. I don't think that would go over too well.
Secret rare. It's the only secret rare in the whole set.
Yeah, I think it's not too big of a deal. I think it's always funny. I joke about every time a new set comes out, it's like, oh my god, can you believe the arts? Oh my god, it's the best set of all time. And this 151, I'm hearing early rumblings of the same. It's like Evolving Skies, V-Star Universe, Crown Zenith, 151. Every set is the new best set of all time. It's just, it's crazy. And Kadabra being in it. Like, it would be cool though. I don't know if this is what's going to happen, but if they did a 151 set where Bulbasaur was number 1, Mewtwo was number 150, Mew number 151, if they did that, because they haven't been able to, right, with Kadabra, it would be weird if they had that gap. They've never done it. That would be cool. Would that make it the best set of all time? Would that make it no set will ever surpass this? No, but it would just be cool. For me personally, I don't know that they'll do that because they have. Yeah.
I have to ask you, do you think that's a meme? The whole like, oh, this is the best set of all time. Like, I really feel like most people that say that are saying that like not serious. Like, I'm sure there are some people that are just like, oh, Crown Zenith, you know? But like, I actually think most people are very much just like best set of all time. Haha. Like, I don't think that I don't know. I don't ever take that seriously. So maybe I just assume it's a joke. But
there's definitely people on both sides of that. You can never tell, but I feel like it's the default thing for the YouTube space. I mean, none of our channels are really in that market, but I think for the biggest influencers, right? It's good to feed into that. It's like, watch this video. This is the new best set of all time. So how much of it's meme, how much of it's real, it's hard to say, but some of it is definitely by design. Like if I was Pokemon, I would want that to always be how people feel. I would want people to feel like FOMO, just feed into that cycle, hype cycle. It's great for marketing. It's great for all that. So, but yeah, I think it's the constant conversation of like, what will people actually think of in 20 years? The first is always the first. The ultra modern, there's always going to be something newer, flashier, new best set of all time. That whole conversation, but yeah.
I think we're actually the minority where people who are joking or are trying to get clicks saying that this is the best set of all time are the minority compared to people who are saying that this actually is the best set of all time. If you spend, I hate to bash on it all the time, but if you spend any time on Facebook, you realize how just like blatantly stupid the vast majority of people who are in the hobby actually are. So I can definitely believe that there's more people who are saying that this is the stonkiest set of all time.
I love how brutally and unapologetically honest you are.
Nick going at it. Nick going. Nick needs some red lights in the background.
See how many morons
it's true though.
Go follow old school Pokemon on Facebook.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
I hope you have reviews shut off, my friend, because your Facebook following.
Oh.
We'll show him.
So on that note, we've got one last question from the episode 2 weeks ago, and then we'll just get into hanging out with chat. We'll get into Squeaks topics, questions, whatever. Poke Family Gaming says, I know that you guys said that listing daily helps promote your listings on eBay. Do you know of any other ways that the eBay algorithm promotes your stuff? Do you know of any things that reduce/hurt your exposure? I think just the general obvious things would be what I'd answer here. As far as like having defects, having negative feedbacks, eBay's going to be less prone to pushing you if when you get a sale, it leads to a bad buyer experience. One bad buyer experience could make a customer leave the platform forever. So if you're having defects, if you're having a lot of them especially, it just makes sense that they'd be less prone to pushing you. Other common sense things, I think free shipping, all else equal, everything else equal, if two things have the same exact price, I think just free shipping in general, shorter shipping times, accepting returns, things like that, the general obvious things, they just help you more. If I have a thing for $100 with free shipping and Nick has it for $95 with $5 shipping, his handling time's 5 days and he has no returns, my handling time same day or 1 day and I have returns. I am way more likely to be pushed. eBay's ad rate, what do they call it? Promoted listings. If you're paying them extra to promote it, they're going to promote it more, right? If you're willing to pay them instead of the 12% fee, if you put an 8% ad rate on that, and you're willing to just say like, hey, I'm going to give you 20% on this instead of 12, they're going to push that significantly more. Those are the biggest things I can think of that come to mind. You guys have anything to add?
Do you have anything to speak?
I think for me, the most like the one I think of the most, right, is because like eBay is gonna push based on everything Dan just said. But one of the ones that I think people forget about a lot is Google, which is going to crawl eBay and pull up a lot of these listings as well. If you've ever been to the shopping tab, if you've ever been just like searched a card on Google, you'll find eBay listings organically pull. So one of the things that I've always found is cleaning your listings up to where it makes the crawlers really more likely to pull your stuff, right? And one way that you can test this is when you make an eBay listing and you put in your title, it's going to sometimes give you like a suggested title or like something similar, like pre-populate. That's based off of what other people have titled and had successful sales. If you've ever like been looking on eBay and seen somebody with a title that's almost identical to yours, it's not that they necessarily went to your listing and copied it. It's probably that the algorithm populated your title as a suggested for them and they just went with it identically. And I've seen it happen with some of my stuff before because I've seen people put the last 5 cert digits of my cards on their cards by accident because it just populated at the end of it. And so like that will give you a relatively good idea if what you're doing is correct, right? And if it's always giving you a suggestion outside of what you're doing, then maybe you should change things up, right? And then clear and concise, right? Your title, your descriptions, that's your biggest metric of SEO. If they're not clear and concise, if it's hard for it to crawl and know where things start and stop, that's why I use little dashes in mine. You can use slashes, you can use whatever looks clean to you. Get rid of all the fluff. People don't need to know every little aspect of the card. They need the name, the number, the condition, the grade, the company, those things, and then slap Pokemon in there somewhere, and then you're good to go. You don't all the other stuff that you like people think is getting them additional clicks. It's not. It's actually muddying the water. So that would be the best tip I could give.
Yeah, I think Dan and Squeaks covered that one pretty good. One other conspiracy that I have, time to bust out the tinfoil hat, but I honestly think like Black Friday is always like a prime example for me, because I always do a big store within my eBay, or a big sale within my eBay store on Black Friday. And then I also send out offers to people. So like send manual offers to people, like midnight on Thanksgiving, to kind of jumpstart that sale. I think if you have like an abnormally high sales volume, so like Black Friday weekend, I have a ton of sales Friday and Saturday. And then Sunday, my sales will like drop off a cliff and I'll have very few sales. I think at some point eBay like caps the amount of items that you can sell based off of like how much you typically sell. Like if I typically sell 50 items a day and one day I have 100 items to ship out, eBay might cap that and say, okay, we're gonna slow your sales volume down for whatever reason. I don't know if there's any truth to that. I've heard a few people talk about it. I personally believe there is some truth to that. So on those days that I have a ton of sales to ship out, like Black Friday weekend, I don't typically go to the post office on Saturday, but I'll actually package all of my orders on Saturday and kind of clear all those orders off of eBay so that I can continue to have just a regular amount of sales. Yeah, I don't know. Have you guys ever experienced anything like that?
I want to double down on your tinfoil hat theory. Now, I want to clarify at the start of this, because I know there's going to be that person out there that sells like low volume seller, sells 5 items in a day, doesn't sell anything for the next 3 days, and is going to be like, eBay's keeping me down, man. No, like you just don't sell a lot of items. I'm sorry. And like you had some lumpy sales in there. But when I used to sell on Amazon, so one of the big things on Amazon is the buy box, which if you've ever been to like Troll and Toad, it's like the box up there that like you just click the button, TCG player, and it goes into your cart. You don't see all the other sellers. You just click the one that's up there, right? So winning the buy box was like a really big deal. And it's no secret that Amazon has selling velocity limits, which is that once you sell X amount, they're going to do like an account review or whatever. But there's always been like this underlying discussion of, is there velocity limits on the buy box? AKA you sell X amount, and after you hit that threshold, like you're not going to win that buy box anymore for X amount of time. And why would they do that? Is it like a risk management thing of like maybe somebody like hijacked an account and they don't want them to just go wild, whatever. I wouldn't be shocked if these platforms did have some level of like shadow velocity limits on things like this, and for whatever reason that may be, right? And so you saying that you've experienced things like that, and then the experience that I've had on the other side with a completely different platform, but that I assume, you know, works in a similar regard, because for years they were competitors. Now Amazon's way larger, but for years they were competitors in the e-commerce space. That wouldn't surprise me in the slightest, actually. And most of these platforms do have velocity limits, right? If you don't have like a really old eBay account and you sell X amount, they're gonna pause your sales and review your account. If you sell, you know, I know a lot of people in 2020 with PayPal hit a velocity review where they essentially audited their account. I was one of those, where I had done way more in sales in a matter of, you know, 2 months than what I had done the whole year prior. And when I started selling like the first Ed Charizards and stuff, and they velocity reviewed my account. So yeah, I think that kind of thing probably actually does exist. Yeah.
I don't have much to add there. I guess the only thing I'll add, and Squeaks kind of addressed this already, you and even I are such a small sample size. I think people extrapolate way too much, and this is not just in the hobby, but not just in this one specific area, everywhere in the hobby and everywhere in life. Like, they see one individual data point and they just extrapolate linearly from there on everything, and it just doesn't work that way. Oh my god, I pulled 2 El Creamy VMAX's regional pull rates. Oh my god, like there's just so many times where, yeah, like I sell 10 to 20 items a day. There might be a day I sell 35, and then there might be a day I sell 7. That's not a big enough sample size to really make any broad sweeping statements from. And people, I don't even fully subscribe to the whole like seasonality. I mean, to a small extent, but not to the extent that some people say or make it out to be. Oh yeah, going into Christmas, and I've heard both ways of almost every single one. Some people, oh, after Christmas is dead because everyone's broke, but then I hear some people say after Christmas is great because everyone's got eBay gift cards. Tax time is great because everyone's got their refund. Tax time is bad because everyone's paying in what they owe. It's like I've heard both sides of every theory, both sides of every, and throughout, at the end of the day, it's like when I'm listing new and unique items at good prices, I'm selling more. And when I'm listing less, I'm selling less. Like it's more a function of what I'm doing rather than some like conspiracy theory behind eBay and their algorithm, or just some seasonality. Like, I don't know. That's where I'm at. And like me as a business, I recently released a video on how I scaled up throughout the years. If you looked at Pokemon prices, I mean, as the bubble was popping throughout the bubble pop, and I grew exponentially because I was working exponentially more. I mean, I went full time. Like it's always going to be, obviously, what's going on in the broader market, the broader prices and all that are going to factor into it. And had I been full time the whole way, I would have seen some of that. But at the end of the day, it's usually what you put in is what you get out.
Yeah, and I want to parallel off of that. So this isn't like exactly like the velocity limits thing, but kind of your statement on the cherry picking out like one data point and then going the broad thing is kind of just a bigger topic that I think that falls under is analysis paralysis. I find, and I've been guilty of this myself, which is the idea that like you spend so much time analyzing to try to find things to give you actionable data points of like, okay, this tells me I need to do this, or, you know, this thing is like justifying that I should be spending my time here, that then you don't end up doing anything. And I see that so much. Like you jump in one of these live calls in a Discord where there's a bunch of people talking and they're just analyzing and you start to question, how much are you actually doing? If you're spending 18 hours a day analyzing and 6 hours a day sleeping, did you spend any hours of your day actually doing? Which is where you'll get most of your true like good data, is by doing, right? And so this is something I've been guilty of, and I've got a buddy that we both do Fire Emblem and we chat a lot. Shout out Steven. And we've talked about analysis paralysis a lot because we're both analyzers and we love like getting into the nitty gritty of things and everything, and Fire Emblem's a relatively niche, small market. But we'll have to stop ourselves and be like, all right, now we're just like analyzing to analyze and we're not like actually doing anything. You know what I mean? And I think that like that the idea of like cherry picking out little data points and like trying to like draw conclusions and come up with like some unfound theory that nobody's ever talked about in this hobby, even though we all talk about this stuff for like 18 hours a day. Like, I don't want to like be that guy. It's like, man, it's kind of a waste of time. But I think there is like a certain threshold where it is a waste of time, right? And like learning to recognize where you're starting to like encroach upon that like analysis paralysis versus like, this is actually bettering what I'm doing in the hobby and being like objectively honest with ourselves. Like just sometimes it's okay to flip the switch and disconnect and be like, all right, today I'm just going to list. I'm going to sort my stuff. I'm going to source things. I'm not going to analyze things. I'm not going to look at market trajectories and prices and try to figure out the next 45 years of Pokemon and what every human being's psychology and they're going to care about on the planet. And like, because in the reality is like it doesn't matter. Like it's not going to impact you tomorrow. It's not going to impact you the next day. It may impact you 5 to 10 years from now. But like, yeah. So yeah, I don't know. That was a rant. I just had to go. It popped in my head. I had to get it out there. So
anything to add on that, Nick?
No, I think I agree with that 100%. I always think it's better just to hop into it and do something. Like we always get questions about people wanting to start selling on eBay. What's tips that they want? They wanting tips on how to get started selling on eBay. The biggest tip there is to just do it. Just get started. That's the biggest thing I could add to that.
Yeah, definitely. So did you guys want to go into live chat questions, or Squeaks, did you want to hit us with a couple topics beforehand?
Hey, this is your guys' show. We can do whatever you want.
Well, once we hop into the live chat, if we want to, I mean, we're going for another 2 hours and 45 minutes. All that time can and will be consumed. So if you had anything else you wanted to cover beforehand, we could do that before going into the live chat.
Or we can pivot. If I start to think we're getting close on time and I just want to talk about something else, you know me, I'll just talk about it.
Okay.
Don't worry, man. You run your show how you run it, and we'll get everything covered.
Yeah. As I said earlier, chat, feel free to leave your questions in the chat. I won't probably be able to grab all of them. I'll grab what I can, and then you guys know how it goes. But first question, I'll highlight up on screen. Professor Birch asked 45 minutes ago, hopefully you're still here, majority of Pokemon distributors in 2023 are not accepting online sellers. Any advice besides being persistent and calling monthly to give a new business a chance?
Open a brick and mortar.
Yeah,
that's true right there.
That's
like
a foolproof way, I guess.
Isn't going to change their business policy, right? Like that's this is in place because they don't have enough product to give the stores they already have, but they do have an obligation to these companies that are like opening new stores to support organized play and everything to try to get them products. So they're still allowing them in the door. You know, it's not like COVID where they just weren't taking any new distributor applications at all because they had like car washes and auto parts stores and stuff trying to get Pokemon cards because it was an easy flip. So they are still allowing brick and mortar in, but I actually think most of these distributors would just cut it off completely right now if they had the option. So I think just accepting that like this is the times. I will tell you that I guess my first question would be like, what do you want at the distributor, right? If it's just Pokemon, which is primarily what I assume we're here for, that's not your like upward trajectory in the hobby. It really isn't, because even starting out, you can't get enough of an allocation to get the good juicy specialty sets. You end up just buying all the crap. Your margins just as an online retailer are really non-existent unless you're just going to sit on the stuff. And there's so many more ways that you can like upward mobilize yourself than a distributor. I think that if distributors like the type of play that you look at when you really want to get serious. But to help out your question, set up an online website. That's one of like, I've literally had reps tell me before, if we get an application from someone and they don't have any kind of presence outside of like an Instagram live feed or a whatnot stream or something like that, but it's not like a legitimate business, they have a reseller certificate, whatever, they're going to go to the bottom of the pile. Like at least show some level of effort that you're looking to like establish something long term, so that we as a distributor have confidence that you're going to be around 4 years from now, that if we start giving you allocation instead of somebody else, because we could give that product elsewhere, that we're going to be rewarded by having a long-term customer that gives us as a business financial security, right? Instead of a lot of these fly-by-nights that we saw back in 2016 and 2020, where they come in, they try to get as much product as they can because it's stonk crazy and you can make a bunch of money on it. And then the second it isn't anymore, they dip out of the hobby and they just leave the distributor to piece the puzzle back together and figure out how to move forward. So that would be my best advice. Website.
Good advice too.
Yeah.
Yeah, the hurdle is very high and the overhead is very high, but an actual true brick and mortar would get you in the door. Like, that is a definitive thing. One thing kind of related to the question, but pivoting it in a different direction. Have you guys ever had the thought or the worry that Pokemon would ever become brick and mortar exclusive? There are certain IPs, Magic, I believe Yu-Gi-Oh! Is as well. MetaZoo, unless you're a partner, is as well. Have you guys given much thought to that? Do you think that certain people would be grandfathered in? Because obviously some amount of all of our business strategies rely on having that access, right?
Sure. Nick, I'll let you start it.
I've never really given that much thought myself. I almost don't think right now Pokemon would be able to just sell direct to LGSs. They would have to cut back. I think they would have to cut back on the amount of product that they're printing. I don't know how much product Magic prints, but I almost think that like Pokemon would be printing too much product if it just went to LGSs. They would have to almost do something where it was going to LGSs, they were selling it on the Pokemon website, and maybe something like Magic is doing, selling it through Amazon as well. I don't think they could just do direct through LGSs, and then selling it on the Pokemon website and through Amazon. I think that would just piss off LGSs to the point where they start to get out of Pokemon, and then all of your league play would start to die off. So I can't see a world where that does happen.
So for me, because this is a question I've thought a lot about, because back in 2016, when Evolutions came out, that was one of the first sets at distributors that you couldn't just call up and get more, right? I know that sounds crazy because like we live in a world today where like you're calling every day to see if you can get product ever. But it's like back then, you could just order more. Distributors always had access on hand. And Evolutions was like a 2-week wait, which was crazy at the time, right? And that was back when Danny Phantom, started like talking about like, I wonder if Pokemon would ever go brick and mortar. And like brick and mortar only. And I mulled this over a lot. And I do think the landscape of the hobby has changed significantly. Nick, you had mentioned Amazon, and Magic did it with Amazon, right? And I think that they're starting to feel a lot of the negative repercussions from that years later. But I think Pokemon can do whatever they want. I think that it's, don't bite the hand that feeds you, always recognize your place kind of situation that I don't anticipate they will. And I could bore everyone for hours of why I don't think they will. But the reality is, they can or they can't, 50-50. Nobody knows what they're going to decide or what they want to do. I think the biggest determining factor for them on making a decision like that is if they don't make it, is it an existential threat to the product itself or their intellectual property? And they make that decision accordingly. And if they do make that decision to do that, for me, my answer would be to open a brick and mortar. Like I could justify the overhead expense enough for what I do make from the product and the distributor relationships that I have. In terms of grandfathering people in, I don't think so, because you're not really solving your problem, because new stores really aren't getting in the door anymore anyways. So the only reason that you would be doing that now is to call off the ones that already exist. So I've always kept a business model plan and just adapted it over the years as I've seen the industry change for what a brick and mortar would look like for me, how I would build it out, everything like that. And sometimes I mull it over if I want to do it anyways. But I've always kept it on hand to where if I needed to, and I was given a time frame of like, hey, if if in the next 3 months you don't have a brick and mortar, you know, Pokemon says we got to cut you off, that I can have a brick and mortar full scale up and running from point A to point B if I needed to. So that's kind of I think the best you could ever do in that situation. If you're like somebody that would want to keep your distributor relationships, if that was a situation where they were going to cut it off, is you essentially just have to have your safety net, security blanket, fallback plan.
That's actually a spreadsheet that exists in my Drive folder somewhere. Years ago, it was actually before I went full time. Just out of curiosity, I looked at some commercial spaces around me. I'm in the woods, but we do have some small cities here and there. I do have some LGSs, but not too many. And honestly, there's some decent sized cities near me that have no LGS whatsoever. So I've looked into it. I have a spreadsheet somewhere on like estimated, here's the lease, here's what the build out would be. I mean, at this point, I have the inventory that would be required to launch one. I have the capital. So it is actually something that's been in the back of my mind. I've tentatively, like, it's not something I want to do at all, but the thought's been put into it to some extent. If it were to happen, I guess I could make the ultimate decision. I feel like I would just pivot. I do a lot of graded. I do ultra modern sealed, but I would probably pivot just entirely away from wholesale distribution and go into the other stuff that I do. I would just make that my only thing instead of just, because that's my main thing still. But yeah, it's an interesting thought because I think it is a potential reality that we could find ourselves in the coming years. I kind of disagree, Nick. You mentioned that you don't think Pokemon would be able to move all their product. I think Pokemon would have no issue moving their product if they were to just up what they send to Walmarts and Targets through MJ Holding and similar. And like, if you hit up Mason, Cardinal Gaming, if they were to hit him up and, hey, do you want another wave doubling what you had for Crown Zenith ETBs? Obviously, it wouldn't be every product, but Mason mentioned, I think he had 200 and something Crown Zenith ETBs, and he sold through 85% of them in the first 2 or 3 days. And I don't think he's going to have access to any more, or a very small drip, if any. I think he would take a lot more right now. I think most LGSs, we're at that time where most everybody would take more of everything. How long that lasts, and Squeaks touched on a lot of good points about maybe it wouldn't be the right path to just cut off all the internet guys when everything is great now. Who knows what it's going to look like in 2 to 5 years. So I'm not necessarily forecasting or thinking that they'll do that. I don't think that's the most likely scenario, but it's just an interesting thought experiment, given that our businesses rely so heavily on that relationship, that policy being in place where we can buy it. If that were to go away, it's kind of a thing you should have in mind, right? The more your business relies on it, the more you should plan for it.
Yeah, the more, and this goes for anything, not just distributor, but absolutely anything in the industry, selling platforms, where you source your product, who you work with, if you do a podcast, whatever, is the more reliant you are in your full business picture on one aspect of your business, the more you are susceptible to your business essentially coming under attack if that is taken away for whatever reason, right? As someone that did a podcast, and my co-host decided that like the podcast couldn't be a priority, right? And while I understand that, that is like now a section right now. Luckily, I was not reliant on the podcast. But a distributor relationship or a selling platform or something like that, if that goes away overnight and you don't have any kind of a backup plan or know how you're going to pivot, you're going to be left in the dark and you're not going to have a plan and you're going to be hosed. And so that's why generally diversify out among those things, but always kind of create your contingency plans of what would I do if. And those worst case scenarios aren't fun to think of. It's not fun to sit and stew on that stuff, and you can't do it all day, but you do generally want to have something in mind, right? And like for you, it's interesting because you said, oh, I would just pivot to my other things, right? Whereas for me, I've already mulled brick and mortar over before. So that's, you know, it would suck, but it is an avenue I'd be willing to take. But for me, it's because it's like a labor of love, right? You know, I love talking to other people. I'm sitting in Discord all day while I pack orders and work and whatever. I like the social aspect. And brick and mortars are kind of that, really, like game stores. It's a labor of love, right? You generally love the social interaction that you have with people. If you don't open a brick and mortar, because that's probably one of the few upsides that you actually get out of them. So yeah, I think that's interesting. But yeah, it just comes down to like always making sure you have backup plans and backup plans for your backup plans.
Yeah.
Don't get caught with your plan, you know?
Yeah.
Yes, that's definitely important. My one other point with the LGS is not being able to take the product is well, we'll never know, but it would be really interesting to see like what percentage of product goes to Walmart and all like your big box retailers versus the percentage that goes to LGSs versus the percentage that goes to actual like online retailers. I would bet that LGSs and online retailers are fairly close, with Walmart, Target, all of them taking a big portion as well. But sure, Mason would love to get Mason and all these other LGSs and everyone else would love to get more Crown Zenith ETBs. But what about back in 2020 when Pokemon reprinted like every single set, Battle Styles, Chilling Reign, Fusion Strike, and just dumped all of this product onto everyone? If online retailers didn't exist, then LGSs would have to take even more of that product. And I just you hear Mason talk about how tough of a time that was for his business and a lot of other LGSs. And if online retailers didn't exist, that would just hurt LGSs even more so. So there are products that LGSs and everyone else do really, really want, but there's also products that not everyone wants.
Yeah.
And having it kind of fanned out across a larger buyer pool makes the hit a little bit easier.
Yeah, I feel like the whole if it's not broke, don't fix it. I think that's where Pokemon would be right now. I don't think they would make such a drastic thing anytime soon. They just printed 9.1 billion cards, and it wasn't enough. Like, prices are doing crazy things right now, historic things. So for them to come out at any point in the next 1 to 5 years with that would be ridiculous business strategy. I don't know what the incentive would be for them. But down the line, if things change, if things get rockier, if for some reason they think it's a strategic play, I just don't see it coming anytime soon. I just wanted to ask you guys if you had ever gone through the thought experiment, because I definitely have before.
Yeah, and one thing I want to piggyback off of what you guys have said in terms of Pokemon, would they or wouldn't they do it, is COVID just gave a really scary wake-up call to these multi-million and multi-billion-dollar businesses of what it looks like if for some reason your in-person infrastructure no longer works. Now, obviously, that's a black swan type event. We would hope something like that would never happen again. But if Pokemon wouldn't have had online retailers, they would have been in a really, really bad spot. I mean, most of the brick and mortar that I know of, your average size, right? Not your major ones like Yeti Games or something like that, but your average size one, they were scrambling to try to set up any kind of an online presence and curbside pickups and whatever, so they could just keep money flowing in the door. If you just cut off a revenue stream like that, it almost like showed the necessity of having like diversification just within the businesses that are buying your product, right? And I do think that there's a level of like healthy, right? Like, was it healthy for Magic to give Amazon an exclusive deal and whatever, maybe for their bottom line, but not their long term? We don't have to get into that. But I just don't see a world where Pokemon's literally only 2.5 years removed from COVID and then says, yeah, actually, we're going to cut all those online retailers that essentially kind of saved us during the last 2.5 years. Yeah, we're just going to cut them off. It doesn't seem realistic to me. But again, anything can change too, right? If they ever deem that those online retailers are an existential threat to the trading card side of their business, then maybe they do.
Yeah. I actually just looked it up while we were talking, and I didn't realize MJ Holdings was a publicly traded company. I might have to dig through their 10K and see if I can try to find anything with respect to Pokemon specifically. That'll be a fun little project for some point down the line. But yeah, it would be really cool. Of the 9.1 billion cards, this many were Japanese, this many were English, this many were other languages, this many went to Target, Walmart, big box stores like that, this many went to... We're never going to get it, I don't think, but it would be fascinating to see.
Billion were energies, easily.
Yeah.
Easily.
And I do want to highlight one message quick that's kind of on topic, well, very on topic. Retrospect says people want distros because they think it means free profit for no work, and that's not the case at all. If you're not doing 6 figures on eBay, what are you going to do with a Pokemon distro? I think a lot of people do have a warped perception of what distribution is and looks like. 2020, even to today, with some sets, are not like it historically was over the years. Some of the margins are crazy and have been crazier than they ever were, just due to all the stonking that's going on and all the just how hot it is. And that's not necessarily going to remain forever. But if and when, say tomorrow you call up one of the names from the list and, oh yep, you've got an account. You're not going to be able to just buy Evolving Skies for $86.50. You're not going to be able to just buy as much Brilliant Stars as you want, Crown Zenith as you want for $86.50. I have 2 distributors myself. One has nothing. And then the other one, I can buy like 2 boxes of Astral Radiance for $115 each, I think. If I were to browse eBay, browse TCG Player, go on a Facebook group, I could probably get a cheaper price to my door than my distributor's currently offering. And that's a limit 2 per week. Cheaper. So it's a very, it's tough out there right now. There's not a whole lot of product to be had. If you want all the things that nobody else wants, if you want some random sleeve boosters, if you want stacking tins, things like that, you might be in luck, but it's not going to be what you hope it's going to be, very likely speaking. And I just wanted to highlight the comment because I think that exists for every aspect of the hobby, like grading vintage cards. There's no just oasis of pack fresh, gem mint, quality cards that you can just buy, tap into without limit. Like, it takes work to find this stuff. And distributors maybe someday will return, because as Squeaks was saying earlier, I have so many emails and sometimes I get a bit nostalgic and I go back through that my distributor would send me, hey, this is everything we have in stock and the prices. And when I got in during XY Phantom Forces, I could buy stuff all the way back to Heart Gold Soul Silver. I could buy the sleeve boosters, or not the sleeve boosters, but the blister boosters cases of like Heart Gold Soul Silver Unleashed or Undaunted, whichever one it was. I could buy Black and White era booster boxes and certain different products that I think someday we'll get back there, but I just don't know what that will look like. I don't know what the path will look like. It's just, it's unprecedented times that we're still in.
Mad Al had Majestic Dawn sleeve blisters up until like the end of 2018.
Yep. I was buying a decent amount of them, but not as much as like Cool Trainer Ryan and PokeRev. I know that he talks about.
And they had some troves they found too.
Yeah.
Not just distributors. They found some.
I think we covered that one pretty well, though. Got another question here from Your Average Player. This one is pointed towards YOU Squeaks, and he mentions right at the start of it, you don't have to answer this, but he's always been interested in influencer marketing and wondered how taking a break from YouTube impacted your TCG business. And if you don't want to answer it specifically, if you want to just talk about how your social media presence relates to your business and all that, however you guys want to address that.
Oh, I'll absolutely answer that. It does, right? So that's the hard part about something like YouTube. You know, during 2020, when everyone was stuck at home, YouTube was juicing for me. Like I was making a pretty good amount of money through ad revenue, and I wasn't that big at all, right? But like hitting like, you know, $1,500 a month in ad revenue wasn't unrealistic between that and like memberships and stuff. And you know, that's not a crazy amount. It's not enough to live off of, but for something that's like a passion project where you're doing a video for an hour a day or whatever, because I did minimal editing and minimal whatever, you know, that was a good sum of money. Obviously, that changes now when people aren't on YouTube all day and everything like that, but it was more so the burnout, right? And I will get to your part about the influencer part, because this goes into it, right? Doing that all day, every day, you see a lot of payoff from that. You see more people that recognize you and your brand, more people that are willing to go to your website and order from you directly because they trust you, even though maybe your website isn't as nice as Amazon or Walmart or Best Buy or whatever. And because they know it's you, it's this person on the other side of the screen, you do get more collections that come through your door because people know that you're actively buying, and you're always essentially marketing yourself, right? But on that flip side, then there's like that level of burnout that occurs. And where is that balance of I'm going to make content, but also I'm going to keep myself in a mentally healthy spot where I can continue to do that, right? And I've always struggled with this, which is why I end up taking breaks, and some are shorter, some are longer, is because I'll hit that threshold and it's like no amount of collection buys or marketing or publicity is worth me just wanting to leave the industry altogether, right? Which is the absolute most detrimental thing and the opposite of marketing, right? So I think you like have to find that balance, but there's absolutely an impact, right? And that's why I speak about this with like so much importance, is because finding that balance is crucial, because it really is the best form of marketing you can do for the least dollar input. Now you have time input and your time is valuable, but if you're somebody starting up a business and you're working on low capital, time is your most expendable resource, because you don't have the cash to go out and pay Google AdSense to plug all your stuff. So managing to optimize your SEO on your website and market yourself through whatever social media channels you can is some of the most efficient ways to actually growing your business without having to directly invest money into it. And so, yeah, it's super, super important. And now, I mean, there's all kinds of crazy features. Shopify integrates with YouTube. I don't know if shameless plug, if you guys look at my current videos, you'll see products below my videos that I've now managed to get those products to sync to Google. So now I can sync them on YouTube. If you go to my YouTube, you'll see that there's a shop tab. It links my products directly there, pulls you right to the website. So now every time I'm making a video, I'm directly essentially plugging an ad of my own products while still generating ad revenue from other companies. And now I can plug those products right up in the video where it'll have a little pop-up, shop from Squeaks Game World, and pop those products right up in there. Stuff like that, that's invaluable if you can get that kind of stuff set up. So in terms of influencer marketing, now I think that there's a level of recognizing what's healthy and what's not, right? Posting a picture on Instagram every day and then spending 25 minutes in Instagram live here and 25 minutes there, and networking with all these people, if it's not actually converting to some kind of a presence or some kind of a financial payoff for your business, are you essentially just being a socialite, or are you actually doing some level of marketing that has some degree of payoff? And I think that's where people probably aren't honest enough with themselves. So if this is something like you're interested in or going to run a business, is try to find some way to actually quantify what is the payoff that you're getting from what you're doing. And if you're not getting a payoff from it, doesn't mean you can't do those things or have fun with them, but then it has to be in moderation, right? Because it's not actively progressing your business forward.
Yeah, I think.
Sorry, guys. I give long responses. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Anyone got anything to add to that?
No, it's really good, and I think
you're good.
You highlighted a really important thing. You need to know what you are as a business. You need to know what your goals are. You can do pure eBay. There are people that have some of the most successful eBays around, whether in Pokemon or not. They have no social media presence whatsoever. I mean, they can work hand in hand. They can help each other. They can funnel into each other some of the ways that Squeak mentioned. And then there's guys like PokeRev that, I mean, he used to do eBay. He still has an eBay. He still does some of that. He sells packs, but he's nearly primarily, I mean, I don't know his numbers, but I would wager greater than 95% of his revenue is just his socials. It's his YouTube ad revenue, YouTube super chats, super thanks, all that stuff like that. So yeah, it's very important to just be conscious of what your revenue streams are, what amount of time you're putting into, and what value you're getting out of it. I mean, I'm doing the whole YouTube thing. I could definitely do without YouTube as far as my bottom line goes, but I enjoy it for one. And then for two, I do get some opportunities that I wouldn't otherwise have. One, it puts my face out there. When I go to a convention, people feel like they can come to me. I've met them before. It kind of like the whole branding thing. Don't know whatever kind of opportunities that might lead to in the future, but definitely an aspect of it, the whole branding and just having a presence and people kind of knowing the name, the face. But yeah, I definitely get people in my DMs, hey, do you want to buy my collection? I'm able to do the consignment service now. I'm selling collections for people. It's becoming more and more a part of my business. But for the first couple years of it, it was a lot of work for very little, direct and indirect, right? It took some amount of time to build that up. You can't go back. You can never go back. Like, what if I had not started my YouTube channel, not started this podcast with Nick 2 years ago, nearly 2 years ago now, if I just put all that time and energy and effort and into my business, would I be further ahead? Would I be? I have no idea. And frankly, I mean, I don't really care because I made the conscious decision to do it. I've enjoyed my time. But if and when it ever didn't bring enjoyment, or if and when it didn't seem to bring enough monetary gain, I would just get done with it too. I mean, that's something you just got to be aware of, the numbers behind it and how's it all going. What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, I agree with the both of you. I think it's really important to have some type of social media presence. I think Consignments you mentioned that. I think that's a really big one to have a YouTube channel for, where people can actually see your face. I don't know if like Rusty, you, me, James, I don't know if consignment services like that would work without the YouTube channel. Obviously, you'd still have PWCC, Heritage, all of them, because they have such a massive name. But where we're all smaller, if we didn't have a YouTube channel, I don't know if people would be trusting enough to send cards for us to consign. I think people being able to put a face to the name, even though we might not know that person, they kind of feel like they know us just by watching the videos. I think that really, really helps the kind of trustworthiness of people willing to send cards to us for consignment. And then speaking on like my own experience, when I basically quit YouTube channel for the past 6 months or so, my eBay affiliate link basically went down to 0. I was not getting very many clicks. My old videos were not getting many views at all. So I don't know if now kind of those numbers are getting back up there. My eBay affiliate links are getting more clicks now. I don't know if those clicks are necessarily generating revenue for myself in terms of like people buying stuff from my eBay store, or if they're just buying random stuff on eBay. But I would imagine there's at least a certain percentage of those people that I lost sales to because I wasn't making videos and people weren't clicking those affiliate links. So I do think it's very important, but it's also a lot of fun. So that's why I started YouTube, and that's why I'm continuing or getting back into YouTube, is because I do enjoy it.
Yeah, and I actually want to piggyback off of that. You know, a lot of what you both have said is it comes down to like essentially, one, do you enjoy it? If you don't enjoy it, it's probably not going to be the avenue for you. But two, it's a way to legitimize your brand. You know, we had talked, you know, to go back to that distributor question about ways to like try to get yourself in the door. And I said, like, build a website, build out the actual infrastructure for a true business to show them that you're here to stay. But there are also then supplemental things to that. If you look at like the umbrella of your brand, right? So for like me, it'd be Squeaks Game World. You have like the website, you have eBay, you have, you know, any other platforms I sell on. I've done Amazon, TCG Player, etc., where they can look up feedback and sales history. But then from there, you have like a further extension from that. And I know it's looking like a pyramid, but I promise it's not. But you know, you have like more legitimacy then. You have social media with thousands of followers and actual engagement, not just like purchased followers. You have a YouTube channel where you're actively making content, where like that product's going to be seen and put out in front, which is like, you know, from a distributor trying to make their parent company happy that's selling them product like Pokemon. They want to see that, like, Pokemon wants to see like, okay, this is going in the hands of like, it's getting to the end consumer, which is our main goal, right? Keeping people into the hobby. And so like, things like that help add legitimacy to your brand. Essentially, by doing a YouTube or an Instagram or something, you are creating a brand. But that brand needs to be like, you know, you need to use that influencer marketing into something. You need to funnel it into something. You know, for PokeReb, he started with like an eBay store and was selling stuff on there and also broke packs. And then that became the business because it outweighed the other side of it, to where now this is the supplemental thing to that thing, right? And so, yeah, I just wanted to piggyback off like how all of this stuff kind of ties together. It's not just like a one thing here and a one thing there. All of this stuff should be integrating. But at the end of the day, you can't forget what your top level thing is, which is your business as a whole. And that may shift over time, like it's done for some of these larger creators where that became their biggest revenue stream. But at the end of the day, you've got to have some way to put food on the table and pay the bills. And that's where everything needs to be funneling into that.
And one thing I wanted to add too that I have in my video idea list for down the line, I did do a video before where I kind of covered the different revenue streams I have. But one thing, the scalability of social media cannot be competed with at all. Like when I sell on eBay, I have to put in that time. I have to make the listing. It's 1-to-1. Like I'm doing active work and I pack one card gets sold. I guess you can kind of multiply some. I can make one listing that I sell 100 cards through. I can make one listing that I sell 100 boxes through. So you get a little bit of like additive help on that. But when you make a video, when we make this podcast, this is a 3.5-hour conversation between three guys. If one person watches this, or if 1 billion people watch this, it's the same amount of work and the same amount of energy, right? So theoretically, like the dream is always there, right? That something goes viral, something pops off, your videos go from getting 1,000 views to 10,000 views every time. It 10x's your revenue, it 10x's your income from that one segment of your business for the same amount of work. Like the scalability of social media. So when I created my channel, not thinking I'm ever going to have 100,000 subscribers or anything, but all the working together, all the synergy, to throw a nice buzzword in there, all the synergy between the other aspects of my business is great. But like that scalability of it is just very tempting and very, very attractive.
Yeah.
I do want to highlight quickly, appreciate you, the Zard Hunter, gave a $2 super chat quite a while ago now, I think an hour ago. And then I did have a question from your average player. How does CGC grading the metal cards now affect the sealed UPC?
Ooh, that's juicy. That's speculation.
Yeah.
Nick, you want to start this one? Sorry, Nick, I'm putting you on the spot. Do you have a horse in the race? Do you care?
So I'm very glad CGC finally figured out how to grade metal cards. I was really happy to hear that. I'm definitely going to be sending some of the. I don't have many of the Pikachu metal cards, but I do have a bunch of the Charizard metal cards, so I'm definitely going to be sending those into CGC for grading. I think it was a smart move on CGC's part to actually do that, and I think it's only a matter of time before PSA catches on and figures that out themselves. They seem to be a copycat of CGC from the beginning. When CGC started grading errors, that's when PSA started grading errors. So I think the same thing's going to happen with these metal cards. But in terms of like the value of sealed UPCs now, it's going to be interesting. I personally I don't think it'll have too much of effect on the sealed pricing, specifically with CGC grading the metal cards. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens with those pricing. Right now, even the CGC metal cards are really, really expensive, but I don't think that's going to last long. I think there's going to be a ton of people who submit these metal cards into CGC, and pricing is going to quickly plummet. Plus, they mentioned that there was people who had the metal cards sitting at CGC waiting for this to happen. I'm curious as to how many people actually held those metal cards at CGC versus having them returned, since it's been so long since they submitted those cards originally. So I would imagine there's a decent chunk of people who left their cards there, which will probably be graded within the next couple of days and dramatically increase the pop report. And then over the next couple of weeks, pop report's is going to increase even more dramatically. So pricing on those cards is definitely going to come way down over the next month or so. But in the short term, like the next couple of weeks to the month, there could be some people thinking that there's a play with the sealed UPCs, and we might see like a short-term uptick on it, but anything long-term, I can't see happening.
Yeah.
What are you guys' thoughts on that one?
I think that
I have. No, you go. Dan.
Yeah. I think that just on the news, some amount of UPCs were definitely cracked. How many was it? I have no idea. But like all else equal, that news having been released, that can only be positive towards the sealed price, right? Because some amount more are going to be cracked. How drastic that will be, to what extent, will that be a short blip that then meets its long-term equilibrium price had they never gone back to grading them? I don't really know. But if anything, I guess my overall answer is just slightly bullish in the short to medium term on the sealed product, because it's fairly common sense. Some amount of people, whether it's advised to or not, whether they'll make money on it or not, some amount of people will be cracking it to send to CGC. I'm not going to. I don't have many left. I'm not going to crack any. I don't have many of the raw metal cards left, so I'm not really going to be touching that play whatsoever. But those are my thoughts. What do you think, Squeaks?
All right, here we go, baby. I'm mega bullish on this, okay? Let me tell you why. First of all, I'm mega bullish because I'm biased. So someone in our Discord actually had the metal cards still at CGC, got them processed and graded, which told me, oh, they have the metal holders figured out, and I went and bought 13 of each. So yeah, I'm definitely already financially invested into this, but I also have trading. The UPCs. Yeah. But I feel it's fair to give that disclosure, right? So I have the UPCs too. So the UPC value, which is what this question specifically about, is going to strictly be dictated on two things. One, like Dan said, some of them are going to get opened. But how many of these metal cards still have yet to get graded? And then two, what do the high-end grade populations look like? If they still remain extremely difficult to get your perfect 10s, pristine 10s, 9.5s, you can best believe those prices then are going to elevate, because you're going to have that additional wave come in. It'll bring prices down. People will realize how little supply there is of these high grades, and then they would want to chase them, right? This is all with the belief that, like, if they're still hard to grade. If that happens, you're going to see a price disparity then between 9.5s and the 2.10s versus what you could go buy a UPC for and potentially chase that 10. Even though you know your odds of having one of those grades in there straight out of the box is probably low. It doesn't matter, because most people in this hobby love to gamble. And so inherently then you're going to see those UPC prices climb, because people will want to open them to chase the gamble. And if there's a financial level of like, oh, every 5 of these I get one that's that grade that I can grade and I can flip this and make a profit and it's easy money, blah, 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 then people are going to do that, and you're going to have to watch that UPC price climb to close that gap some, because eventually that supply is going to get eaten. So the UPC price, I truly believe, is extremely contingent upon the grades that start coming out on these and how much demand remains on these cards, and whether or not Pokemon then decides to continue to do metal cards, and if there's interest that remains in these things. And, you know, there's a million variables at play, but to me, the grade one is specifically the most interesting, because it's similar to anything where the box price generally heavily outweighs the singles until you get to that upper echelon, right? First base, box price is crazy, but there was a period of time where you could chase a first ed Charizard in a 10, and it helped elevate the box prices till they exploded way past 10 prices, because of the fact that, like, why wouldn't you just try to crack one and go for it? You know, like, you only have X amount of odds of getting the Charizard and X percentage chance of getting the 10, but people love to gamble, so hey, why not? And so, yeah, I'm actually UPCs, I think inevitably the trajectory was going to be up, because the odds of a reprint on those are like 0, I think, at this point, or 1%. But the metal cards themselves, I actually agree with Nick that I think in the short term they will come down. I don't know that they're going to come down to like raw plus slab prices. In fact, I would actually expect to see some of the raw get gobbled up, similar to what I did, just for people that were already thinking about making the play. And this was like the straw that broke the camel's back. Like, I had already done all the research I needed to do on this, and just like quite wasn't there. I was like, it seems good, but I can't grade it, so I don't have that option available. And then the second that option became available and I recognized it would be a thing, it was like, okay, I've got to go for it, you know. And like, maybe I'll just absolutely get cleaned on it, right? But like, that to me, like, I think that there's going to be like a new level of balance that we're going to have to start encountering on these metal cards and these products that for a while has been completely static, because nothing has really changed for them in the market. And now this is a drastic shift where a completely new opportunity opens up. And to your point, Dan, how many people, and I think Nick might have said it too, how many people still had these metal cards, right? That they're just sleeved in a box or in a card saver or whatever, that they were waiting to grade and were holding out hope. You know, that could also really impact and influence. And that's where I go back to when the UPC actually came out, and was it supplied to demand? And the answer to that, to me, is still no. So I'm not sure that in the metal cards being the chase of the box, I'm not sure that those were ever supplied to demand, which means I don't know that the graded ones will ever be supplied to demand, but that we'll just let time pan it out. But yeah, I'm bullish on them.
Yeah. And Nick touched briefly on PSA potentially following suit. I'm in the other camp. I feel like PSA might just let CGC have this one. I feel like, and yeah, I completely could be wrong. To me, the whole backlog thing, we're kind of past it now with PSA and CGC, right? So clearly they have some amount of extra time to devote to R&D. It did not make any sense to me because initially the timeline, I think, for this given by CGC was like May of 2022, if I remember correctly. They said sometime in March or April that they'd have a solution by May. And I'm like, I don't remember the exact timing of the backlogs and all that, but why would you devote any manpower towards this when you've got a backlog, when you've got cards to grade to the tune of like hundreds of thousands or millions? When what's the upside for the company? What's the upside for the company? Grading 10,000 metal cards, grading some small fraction of their annual output in metal cards that need their own special case. Like, I just didn't think it made sense. I could see a scenario where PSA never goes back, because that wasn't this question, but I've seen the question a lot already. Will PSA follow suit? When will they follow suit? Should I grade with CGC now, or should I wait for PSA inevitably coming back? I could just see PSA saying, let's let CGC have this. We don't really care to do all this R&D, develop a new case, get a source for the new cases to grade what, 10, 20,000 metal cards over the next couple of years. And then one thing that I worry about is 5-10 years from now, were these things actually produced with enough quality that they're going to not still break down in the case? Like, I don't know what CGC's solution was. I don't know what they changed about the case, but anything short of...
It's a little plastic insert. It looks
like
it looks like they took a little plastic insert with a sleeve, and the card. This is what it looks like, and it looks like the card's in a sleeve, because if you look at the slab that they showed, there's little like cut edges at the corner, almost like where the plastic insert went in. So I think it's sitting within that, so it can't hit the edges of the card or something.
Yeah, like what I was envisioning would be required, and kind of the safest long-term thing that no one would want would almost be like laminating the thing into a sleeve so that no fragments of the metal can like chip off and go. But yeah, if they've got it in a sleeve, should be fine. But again, talking about the humidity, talking about the warping of cards that we did earlier, if you've got your thing stored in a suboptimal place and too much humidity gets in there, I guess I just don't have great belief in their production of these items, and I just don't feel like they'll age that well. One, off the rip from from the Celebrations UPCs, a lot of them just had paint flaking off. And I feel like no matter what kind of a case you put in, no matter what you do, 5-10 years down the line, these things might be chipping off in the case. If I was PSA, if I was in charge of making that decision, I personally probably wouldn't touch them. Maybe if Pokemon ends up releasing these multiple times a year, every year down the line, now instead of thousands to tens of thousands, you're talking maybe hundreds of thousands of cards you might grade in the coming years. Maybe it becomes more tempting, but I would just worry of the upside is pretty low and known. The downside is moderate to high, in my opinion. If you've got these cards that are selling for $500 to $1,000 a piece, you've got that whole financial guarantee. If they start chipping off, cracking in the case, whatever it may be, looking like shit, it's just not going to be like, it's not going to be great for you. It's not going to, yeah, I don't know. That's
Sure.
how I think about it.
But do you think that there's a level of like letting your competitor have X amount of market reach? Because like, this is never going to be the end of metal cards, right? We've seen, I think MetaZoo has done them. I know Argent Saga did them back when they were around. We've seen other games do them. I'm sure that there will be just like Pops metal cards someday or something like that, or Rittenhouse, or, you know, some degree of that, to where having a solution in place moving forward for metal cards, if and when they exist in whatever products you want to grade. Because we've also seen PSA completely expand out the amount of things that they're willing to grade. And I agree with Nick on that point, that it's almost like they do follow suit. It's like they wait to see that there is an established market share for it, and then they're like, oh, okay, but we can't let them have it all, right? Fourth print. It started with fourth print. Then it was the errors. We've seen them come in. They grade Fire Emblem Cypher now when they would never touch it before. Like there's all kinds of, and maybe that's because of the Japan branch. I don't know. But, you know, they've definitely, it's almost like, okay, what is CGC willing to put their hands in the pot let's make sure we don't let them capture too much market share. Even if we do, let's at least give up the optic that we also are willing to do that and really care about this thing, so that we can say we offer everything our competitor does plus more, right? I think it's more about the optic of it than it is the actual, can we get 100,000 metal Charizards to grade? If not, let's not do this. And so I actually agree with Nick. I think that inevitably, I think they will do it. And I think they will find a solution for it, whether it be because of these Charizards or future metal cards or the optic that it gives them as a company. I think it's imperative that they do it and that they don't rest on their laurels and say, okay, we're 10-1 in terms of market reach of CGC, because we've seen how that pans out with companies like Beckett that are now losing massive amounts of market share and falling down the ranks because they rested on their laurels, didn't improve their company infrastructure for so long. Like, I mean, it doesn't look good, right? Like, I know I'm pivoting this to like the Beckett thing, but I just saw Rattle's video where it's like, what is Beckett doing? Their customer service is bad, blah, blah, blah. And like, I have a submission at Beckett right now that I didn't even know how to look it up in my account. I couldn't find it under my orders tab. Somebody finally told me like, hey, you have to like go to the old website, which I didn't even know there was an old website to like look up your order and find it and blah, blah, blah. And like, that to me is like a great example of like, you were a dominant force in trading cards and sports cards, and maybe they still are in sports, but it definitely feels like they're losing market share to CGC, to PSA, to SGC, to some of these companies. And I don't know that the data backs it up, but at least that's the way it feels on the consumer level. I'm sure Pichu fan probably has that data, but like, that's how it feels at least. And so to me, as PSA, I feel like it's like one of those, you're top of the throne now, but you should continue to do the things to keep you top of the throne, and not just accept that like, oh, okay, we can let them have this one. Like, I don't think that should ever be a company's like MO. It's like, oh, we'll let them have that one. Like, that to me doesn't, they have infinite amount of resources there.
Which I guess there are certain things that they just let BGS have, right? Because there's the joke that BGS will grade anything, and they kind of do. There's a lot of things, but yeah, I don't know. I can see either side of it. It wouldn't overly surprise. I'm not saying there's absolutely no way PSA is ever going to grade them. It would absolutely shock me if they did. But if I had to wager either way, I guess it's not coming anytime soon, would be my guess. But I'm not going to be overly shocked if it does.
No, I just wanted some, some back and forth, right? We don't have to agree on everything. We can have a little juice in here,
that's the thing.
It's
we agree on so much.
One other point I wanted to bring up is into why I think PSA will grade the Metal Charizards is because look at all the numbers that PSA puts out each month. What's the most graded Pokemon card? It's almost always a Charizard. And then if you look at the set registries, what's like the most popular set registry? It's the Charizard Master Set. So PSA almost has to grade that Metal Charizard because it's most definitely getting added into the Charizard Master Set registry. And right now, there's very, very few PSA copies.
And that's the thing. There are some
kind of make it fair to the collectors in the set registry. They almost have to grade more of those if they're going to add it into the set registry.
I mean, PSA is not grading Art Academy cards currently. The PSA does weird things. Nothing would surprise me too much either way, I guess, when I really think about it.
Well, but the Art Academy is because there's tons of illicit copies out there that were not part of the 100 given to the winners, that it's like extremely well documented now that those are out there and exist. And I do think that there's like a level of like, as a company, there's only 100 of these plus extra copies times X amount out there. Like, so what's the market cap? 5,000 cards to grade? Like, that's not even worth it versus the negative look of like potentially grading some of these like bad actor copies that are out there. Like, I actually think taking that stance is more of like a marketing thing than it is like an actual, like, we don't think the cards are real or anything, or can't assign a grade to them. I think it's more of like a, win the goodwill of the people kind of thing than anything else. That's my stance on it.
Which we could get really into the weeds on that with the extra copies of certain trophies that are coming out, and whether or not they know or care. But that's a whole different conversation. But yeah, anyways, anytime that we have a slightly different take on something or disagree on something. I just want to kind of, go further into that just because it is fairly rare. There are many times that one of us gives our answer and, oh yeah, I pretty much agree, add this little thing. It is nice when we get a bit of disagreement. Mr. Walrus has a nice question for us an hour ago. You three get bought out at your dream price. Do you re-enter the hobby or move on? So someone comes to you, I want to take your whole inventory, I want to buy it all, one number, that dream number. I guess I'll go first. Me personally, I never envision in my life that I will ever be like fully retired, sitting on a beach, on the golf course, doing nothing. I've been on eBay for nearly 20 years now, flipping video games, flipping coins, flipping steins, flipping cards. I truly enjoy it. I think that, and it's hard to say, right? I'm only 32. Hopefully I live till 80 something. But I think I'll just always be doing something on the side as just a hobby, as a fun thing on eBay. So if that came along, I still really love Pokemon. I think I'd still be doing it to some extent. Are there certain aspects of my business that I'd be like getting rid of because I don't really need to do that anymore because I don't really like it and I don't need the money as much as I did or currently do. So I would probably change some things. I would probably get out of certain things, maybe get a little bit deeper into other things. I would probably ratchet up the risk level on certain plays that I was willing to make, having just that baseline like safety net, comfort level. I do have like goals in mind over the next 2 to 5 years where I want to be financially, certain accounts, certain things like that. So I would definitely not completely get out. I would really enjoy kind of starting fresh with more capital, more knowledge, all that stuff, and less clutter in my way.
That's interesting to me. I would honestly be done with Pokemon. If someone came to me and said, "I'll buy everything for some crazy figure," I would not get back into Pokemon. I can tell you that. And the reason why is because I would always just like that type of situation. Almost a similar situation happened to me, where I started out with Pokemon in 2009. I built up my business through high school and college, and then halfway through college, it just got to be too much for me. So I said, I'm done with Pokemon. I'm done with eBay. I'm going to be getting a real job soon. So I'm just going to sell everything. And that's what I did. I sold every single Pokemon card that I had. I shut down my entire business. I finished up college. I started working full time. And then with my job, I work a couple months and then I take a couple months off. So I got bored. So I immediately hopped right back into Pokemon. But for the first couple of years, I was constantly comparing myself to my old business and telling myself that back when I had my original business, I had this much inventory, I had this much feedback, I was doing this many sales. And it took me a good couple of years to build up to where I had left back. And during that time, it was like tough on myself because I was constantly comparing myself to my old self. And now, where I have so much more inventory than back then, where I'm doing so many more sales than back then, I think it would be that situation just like magnified even further. And it would just be like super depressing for me to restart from zero. Now, that's with Pokemon. I would 100% still sell on eBay. I would probably branch off into coins because that's another thing that I'm passionate about and have been starting to get back into. I've never done like a full business on that, so I would probably do that. I could never see myself completely retiring and just, like Dan said, sitting on a beach somewhere. That to me just sounds very boring. With my shipping job, I would work 4 months and then I would come home and spend the next 4 months at home. That was fun for about 3 weeks for me. After those first 3 weeks, I started to lose my mind because during the week, all of my other friends were working their jobs. I was sitting at home playing video games, and that is just not me whatsoever. So I basically immediately hopped right back into eBay, and I can definitely see that happening again, where I would start another business away from Pokemon.
Before Squeaks goes,
so Nick, not a true fan.
Yeah. Let me
Yeah. All right.
Nick, I don't know if you want to.
Okay, one, yeah, I'd absolutely sell out. No brainer. No brainer. If you have an inventory of stuff, I guarantee there is a percentage of that inventory that is garbage that you should have never bought. That you're like, dang, wish I could unload this and free up some cash. This is allowing you to do that. You can always start over. Nothing's once in a lifetime in this hobby. Absolutely nothing. Not even the peak. Things like illustrators, you'll always find stuff again. Stuff always hits the market. Life's a long time. Blah, blah, blah. So yeah, absolutely selling out. Would I get back in? Heck yeah, I would. I get to start over with bags full of cash. What are you talking about? That's the best case scenario. What are you doing?
And no clutter.
Nick? I'm getting out, old man. Come on. No shot, bucko. I'm staying in. And I'm staying in until the retirement date that I set when I turned 50 years old. And when I turn 50, if it's after that point, then I sell out and I go do the other things I want to do in life. I want to write a book. I want to get to play an MMO for 12 hours a day again. You know, if those are still going to be around when I'm 50, you know, I want to live life a little bit. I don't want to worry about if I got my orders to the post office at 4:30 in the afternoon, blah, blah, blah. But until that point, yeah, baby, I'm in the hobby. Give me a bunch more bags to work with. If anyone wants to buy me out, I can get you a CSV in 15 minutes of everything. We can talk numbers. It'll be over and done. Let's go. But I won't sell you the business. See, that's the difference. Because, you know, one thing we were talking about, and like I said, I'd never sell the business because I love it and it's my passion thing. But I have to pivot here. Do you guys think that there's going to be a level of value to people's businesses that have distributors just because you can't get in with distributors now? Like, if you're able to transfer that account with the business to the next owner, like, I feel like just inherently that is valuable. And I know that people have sold their businesses. Danny used to own DDG along with two others, Dan and Darren, and they sold that before he ended up going off on his venture now to do the Coliseum. So I know that, like, hobby stores themselves, even just online only, can be sold. But man, I'm starting to wonder, like, I would love to know his, like, did they sell the distributor connections with that? Did he have to reset up new ones? Did he just transfer those over in a new, you know, retail merchant certificate name? Like, how all that worked. But like, that just popped in my head of like selling out. Like, that would also encompass like your business as a whole, unless you were going to do like Nick did and go into, you know, coins or something and keep doing off of the same account or whatever. But
yeah, that's interesting. And instead of selling your business off of a multiple of profit, you'll sell a business off of a percent of like, hey, my annual allocation is 250K. I'm going to charge you 125K, like 50% of my annual allocation just for that. That's an interesting theory. One thing I wanted to say, Nick, I don't know if you want to put it out on YouTube, but let me know what that number is. What's the buyout number? Just in case I ever get sick of you, I want to know how much it'll cost.
Let's get him out now. One competitor down, inventory juiced up. Easy.
I can be to your house in about 5 hours in a U-Haul, so I just want to know what the number is for reasons. Who knows? I mean, maybe I'll even hire you on to Catch 'em All Collectibles Enterprises, I'll have to call it, and I'll just I'll have you run the Massachusetts wing. we can talk salaries, we can talk specifics offline, but yeah, DM me that number just so I know.
Yeah,
I'll be sure to.
And then Dan can start his coin branch. You could just, you know, there you go, easy.
No, I will also say the number would not be a realistic number. Like it would have to be like a number that's like so outlandish to me that it's like, if I sold every single card in my inventory, I wouldn't even be able to reach that number.
Come on, that's not the question, and you know that is the most snooze answer in the world. Oh yeah, if you give me a yacht and half of Jeff Bezos' yearly salary, I'd sell out. Come on, you know the question, Nick. He's trying to recover now. Not a true fan. Bad advice. Yeah, excuses.
Oh man.
Oh man.
I do have a question here. So Blazer OP asked, what are your opinions on Pokemon possibly not reprinting Sword and Shield booster boxes? There's already rumblings of it being a real possibility. Such a common question. You already put Squeaks to sleep. I heard that they're going to silver borders. I heard that these new silver border printing printers, I heard that they can't possibly print yellow borders ever again. I mean, I've heard that before, so I don't know if you guys have anything to add on that.
You're being sarcastic.
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to double check. Sometimes sarcasm doesn't hit with me, and then I was like, no way. As they're printing Crown Zenith, like, sure. So
yeah. Me personally,
so what was the question? Are we getting Sword and Shield boxes? Who knows? We don't know. No one knows. Like, what is this question? You can go on any Q&A YouTube video for any finance person this question has been asked. Blazer, I know you've heard the answer to this.
This is analysis paralysis.
Like, hey, I need a new fresh take. There is no fresh take. No one knows what Pokemon's gonna do except them. And everyone that's telling you they know, everyone's got some mysterious distributor they can never name, but they've told them, and it's X, Y, and Z sets, but they can't tell you what sets. But maybe they'll give you a drip feed of sets, and then you go to their website, and they've got more quantity of that set, or not that set than any other. Whatever. The point is, no one freaking knows. We don't know if we're getting any reprints. We could get booster boxes. We could not get booster boxes. There was a period of time, one time way back when people thought Roaring Skies was completely out of print. Ancient Origins, Steam Siege, Fates Collide, Primal Clash, that all of these were donezo. You know what? Pokemon said, hey, they're not donezo because Shaman's absolutely crippling the competitive side of the scene and it's ruining the integrity of the game. And so we got to get this back out there, and we weren't ready for the premium XY trainer collections yet, so they just pumped those boxes back into the market. Absolutely crushed people. Rudy made a great video about it all the way back then, where he says everyone's going to Pound Town on a bus. And yeah, so anything can happen. No one knows what's going to happen with the Sword and Shield booster boxes. What I would tell you is if you are someone that wants to own them and it's at a price point that you are happy with and you would rather own it at that price than have the chance to never own it, buy. But if it would cripple you to own that with the belief that you could have got it cheaper later on, don't buy it. But be willing to accept that there's a risk to that you may never get it, but there's also a risk that if you do buy it, that it comes out and it's cheaper later and you wasted money. So you just have to weigh those out. But like, I assume that question's more on like the stonker side, which is just like speculation, which is like just a gamble, right? It's just gamble.
This fully falls into the analysis paralysis that we talked about earlier. I think if you have it, sell it or don't sell it. If you don't have it, buy it or don't buy it. Don't just like, I feel like, and this is not pointed towards Blazer, this is just in general. Some people will spend 10 to 20 hours analyzing on the one booster box they own or on the one booster box they intend to buy. And it's like at the end of the day, you got to just act. The analysis, like, unless you know somebody and shout out, like, if you know somebody, hit me up in the DMs, have them hit me up in the DMs. We need an inside man at Millennium Print Group. I know someone has them. I know someone has them. But every day, hundreds of people go into that building, and every other printer that prints for Pokemon, hundreds of people go into that building, and they see what's going across the printers. They see what's being packaged up into the packs, into the boxes. We need that information. Someone's got it. I guarantee you. There are businesses, eBay stores,
trader.
1,000%. There are people that have that information in this industry. It's not me, I swear. This isn't like some big cover. I want to be that guy, though. I mean, there are definitely people that know what's being printed today. Again, what's being printed today is going to be released in weeks or months. Like it's a decently long lead time. So there are people that definitely know, hundreds, if not thousands of people. And it's just crazy.
Your person.
What's that?
Here's how you do it. I can get you your person. Here's how you do it. It's even bigger brain than going into Millennium. Why risk going into Millennium and getting the inside source, right? You go find the guy that's on Facebook selling the half torn up sheets that got thrown away at the trash dump.
There we go.
And that guy, because of course they're going to have cutoffs of anything they print. You just ask that guy, what sheets have been getting put at the dump and what time frame were they getting dropped off at? And then he'll give you the whole spread.
That information would be very valuable. Yeah.
Man.
Sign up to his Patreon. I mean, I'd pay $100 a month.
Who makes a Patreon? I'll tell you what's getting dumped at the trash dump.
I'd sign up for $100 a month to know every week by week, what they're printing. Because it would take 6 months to figure out. Like, okay,
whoever that magical guy is, he could make a killing with that information.
Oh yeah, for sure. And he wouldn't even have to violate any NDAs, right? He'd just have to trespass and then, I mean, steal stolen property out of a dumpster. And
Did you guys ever see that post? There was a guy one time, it was in Burbank, posted, it was the picture of the sheet in the dump with the dirt like half over it. Does anyone want to buy these? And someone literally commented, would these be obtained legally? Already knowing the answer, right? And then a bunch of people liking it, right? Post deleted, guy gone, complete Facebook disappeared off the face of the planet. Like, that dude, he ghosted the internet, man. It was crazy. That was awesome. You just got to find that guy.
Yeah, I'll never understand the whole silver border argument about Sword and Shield not being reprinted. Even the MSRP increase makes a little bit more sense, but even that is such a weak argument. Because Pokemon is still making a killing off of the old MSRP. It's not like they're losing money printing at the old MSRP. They're still making an absolute fortune off of those boxes. So neither of those arguments make much sense to me. And it's like Dan and Squeak said, we'll never know.
Well, why do you want to know? Is it because you're looking to buy a bunch of these boxes when they get reprinted because you want to invest in them long term? Is it because you want to get some right now because you're worried that you won't have the chance and you're afraid they're going to go way up long term? Either way, whether the box is 125 right now, which most other than Evolving Skies and maybe Brilliant Stars, which is starting to get closer to that $200 mark, other than those two, every single box is still below MSRP. Mm-hmm. If you're worried about your 5 to 10 year dollar price point perspectives based on if you're getting your box at 85, 95, 105, or 125, and you're worried about 5 to 10 years, if you're going to be able to recoup after fees, you probably shouldn't have went into it anyways. Because if you really believe it's going to be that tight of a margin in 5 to 10 years, there was infinitely, as someone that literally is like whole business models built on speculation, there are infinitely more things you can go into with far less risk than something that you're literally worried about, like the make or break of $25. Like, that to me is just crazy. Evolving Skies, if that's the one you're concerned about, you missed the boat. If it gets reprinted, great. Don't miss the boat again. But you've had 2 shots at it and you didn't take it. So, accept it. You lost it. You're analysis paralyzing yourself into worrying about this thing and missing 500 other opportunities that are staring you right in front of the face because you spend 48 hours a day talking in Discords and YouTube lives and stuff about is Evolving Skies ever going to get a box reprint. Meanwhile, everybody else is out here doing X, Y, and Z other thing, and they're just going to wait and see what happens. And then you wonder why you make no money in the hobby. Man, dude, Evolving Skies just chaps my ass at this point. I don't know. I'm over it.
Yeah, I mean, I have hundreds of boxes that are affected in this window that may or may not get reprinted. And I don't think about this any more than when I'm on or in a live stream. Like, I'm forced to think about it and talk about it. I really don't think about it that much. It's like, I have what I got. If I get allocated more, I'll buy it all. I'm going to sell it slow drip the same way I do everything else. But yeah, it's just a common theme. I mean, certain boxes have to be checked. You've got your PokeTube live stream bingo card already filled out for the day, I'm assuming. That's just the way it goes.
Scene in Game of Thrones, every time I see that question about Evolving Skies and will it get a reprint, or Moonbreon and is its price justified, it's from Game of Thrones when that woman with the bell and it's like, shame. That's all I want to do every time I see that question. I'm like, how dare you ask that again? That data's out there. You could have already done the research. My opinion's no better than anyone else's on this because nobody has the inside data from it. So it doesn't matter. I get some people respect certain people's opinions more than others, and there's definitely merit to looking at things in the past and everything like that. But the reality is nobody wants the 25-minute answer anyway to actually go through any of that good analysis. They just want the yes or no, at which point it's just the bell. It's just shame. It's shameless to ask that question when it's been answered 500 times over. I'm sorry, Blazer. I love you to death. But I have no opinion on it anymore other than shame. That's where I'm at. I'm the bad guy today.
On
like
that,
it.
I think we covered that one fully.
Dan watching the subscriber count drop. We are never bringing this guy on. And he is destroying us.
No, it's good. It's good. I like it. I like the animated responses. Pikachu asks, how do each of you optimize your enjoyment of the hobby? Who wants to go first?
Oh, I do not.
You want to go, Nick, or you want me to
you
go?
don't enjoy the hobby?
Nick's the one trying to bail.
Yeah, you say I'm a sellout. Here, you don't even enjoy the hobby. For me, it would honestly be my business and growing my business. I spend way more time on that aspect of the hobby than I do my personal collection, and I thoroughly enjoy that aspect of the hobby. So I can work basically 24/7, and for the most part not consider it work because I enjoy it that much. So for me it would just be my business and working on that. I very rarely get sick of that aspect.
You want to go, Squeaks, or you want me to go?
All right, first I have to pause you. What's the juice? What's in the Discord? I'm seeing that there's some juice going down. Is there some sweet news, or is this like an inside thing?
It's just a meme that they made with my face on the Inside Man like DVD cover.
Okay, good. Yeah, the memes are fine. I was just like, dang, is there like an Evolving Skies reprint right now?
Oh,
I just
no.
and I'm like, that's what I was looking for. I literally was like, oh man, there's something, right? No. Optimize my enjoyment of the hobbies. I've tried to build my business around the aspects I like and slowly weed out the things I don't like. I would rather make less money and still want to do it every day and know that I can stay in doing what I'm doing for 20 years from now. I'm going to make a lot more than doing that than if I grind on a bunch of stuff I hate for 5 years, burn out completely, and want to sell out like Nick over here, and then just go work with coins. You know what I mean? So, like, yeah, for me, I'd rather just do the things I like. And that will cap my upper bound, right? Unless I can find other things to integrate. But, and you can't just eliminate everything you don't like, right? I hate packing and shipping, hate it with a passion. Someday I hope I'll be in a place where I can just comfortably pay somebody else with good wage benefits, everything, and they can do all the packing and shipping, because I really don't enjoy that aspect. But I you know, speculating was always the most fun for me, and it's where I felt I had the most talent in the industry. Finding, like, dealing with niche products like sleeves and deck boxes, which may not be the most profitable, but are things that I really enjoy, and I love the arts and sourcing them and stuff like that. You know, that kind of stuff to me is what keeps me invigorated in the hobby, and then staying engaged. You know, being in a podcast like this, right, where I would argue that, you know, Nick and I's business model is probably closer together in terms of things we do, and then I've got some overlap with Dan too. But we're three people in the industry running very different businesses, right? And conversing on similar topics and stuff like this. It helps keep things fresh and, you know, keep you looking at things from different vantage points. And then just to remember that, like, not everything has to be business and everything has to be work. You can open up a pack and look at the cards and enjoy the art, and you can play the video games and just still catch the Pokemon and have a good time and not think about the time you're wasting and how much money you could be making elsewhere. Like, you can just still enjoy Pokemon and love it and have fun with it, and it not have to be completely business related. And so then when you can do that and kind of separate out those things, it allows you to continue to stay in the hobby for many years and not encompass that burnout to some degree.
Yeah, I think you covered it really well. There's always going to be some aspect that you don't love. I mean, you optimize as much as possible. You maximize the things you enjoy the most. You minimize the things or outsource the things you don't like. There's some great consignment services out there. I mean, Nick and I, we each have our own going on. If you don't want to do the selling side, yeah, just optimizing for what you enjoy, and then having a good work-life balance too. Whether this is your job or whether this is your side hustle, work, hobby, life, that whole balance, all that just works together. I try to optimize my content schedule. I like YouTube, but when I was doing 2 or 3 videos a week, I wouldn't say I was getting burnt out. There were just times where it felt like a little bit stressful, like, oh man, I got to get a video for this day, that day, and doing one a week now, one live a week, and then one short a week. I just kind of like found my sweet spot. I'm just going to hang out here. If and when it starts to change, if and when it feels like too much, not enough, I'll just tweak it, right? I'll just set up my schedule, set up all my workflow, all my stuff to, optimize for, it's not just optimize. I mean, money isn't happiness. It's hard to be happy without any money, right? But I'm not optimizing my life solely for finances, solely for money. I'm optimizing it for happiness. Money is some portion of that, but at the end of the day, I'm trying to optimize my life, my business, my everything for just total life happiness. And that's how I handle the hobby too. If and when there's a component of it that isn't working for me, get rid of it or minimize it as much as possible.
Yeah, and your thing about the money and happiness. One of my favorite quotes is, "Money doesn't buy happiness, but money does buy freedom, and freedom's what brings happiness." Right?
Mm.
So freedom is what you're actually the goal that you're trying to obtain from this, right? Financial freedom, freedom to be your own employer, to work your own hours, whatever. Like everyone memes like how I sleep when I want and wake up when I, things like that. But like that's freedom to me. That's what I enjoy. But the key is to not lose sight that was the end goal, not the money, right? So once you've obtained that, you can always get more money, more security, whatever. But don't lose sight of like the thing you enjoy, the freedom to do the things you want to do, to live your life, to enjoy your life, to, that kind of thing, because you're always chasing the grind and always Gary Vee chasing the hustle, like you don't have to do that. You can get to the threshold where you're comfortable and live and enjoy your life, because I can promise you, I've never been on my deathbed, but from a lot of the things I've read about people who have, you're not going to be talking about that great flip you made on your deathbed or the profit margin of an Evolving Skies box 25 years after release. You're going to be talking about the connections that you made, the people that you met, the experiences that you had, and the things that you got to do throughout your life that made it worth living. Right. I know we just got like real. Somebody asked that philosophical question right at the start of this. And like, we're getting real deep, but like, that's the stuff that matters. Don't lose sight of that. This is the means to the end. We're just very fortunate that the means to the end is also something that for most of us, we all really enjoy.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Pika Drew, I guess it's a little bit of a dangerous question bordering on tax advice, but how are you able to justify making acquisitions with friends and family payouts for your business? I mean, I do friends and family payouts for consignments. I also pay out via check, ACH, different options. Sometimes I buy collections where they send it to me up front and then I pay with friends and family. I don't care, and I don't know what they do on the back end, whatever their motivations are. At the end of the day, though, I have a business account, and when money leaves that, whether it's by check, by ACH, by whatever, when money leaves that account, that was my expense for said purchase or for said consignment payout, and that just goes into my column, my section of my spreadsheet that I deliver to my CPA. This is what my collection purchases were for the year. This is what my consignment payouts were for the year. And whether that was through friends and family, whether that was through goods and services, that's kind of agnostic to that. It doesn't care. It doesn't know. That's my answer on that.
I can see your nose growing over there with the whole, I don't know what they do with the money. I know exactly what they do with it. They put it right in their account and never tell anyone about it.
Yeah, I gotta agree with Nick here on this one. So I don't do friends and family anymore. I've cut that out completely. Sending and receiving side, it's not worth losing PayPal as an aspect of my business. If that fee percentage of 2.9% plus 30 cents or whatever it is make or break to the transaction, I shouldn't be doing the transaction in the first place. I think it's a fee of conducting business and utilizing their service, blah, blah, blah. If somebody doesn't want to do business with me because that fee is going to be incorporated, so be it. But I don't think there's anything wrong with sellers that do want to use friends and family if they're willing to take that risk. What I will say, and this is where I would draw the line, is if you are marketing your consignments, I'm not saying you are, I don't know if you do or not, I've never even looked at your consignment thing. But if anyone, we'll do it if anyone is marketing, hey, do this with me because I will send it to you, friends and family, and then you won't get a 1099, you are literally marketing tax evasion.
Oh, yeah. And I don't advertise that way. No.
So, like,
yeah.
Yeah. So, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's where, like, to me, the line is drawn. I've absolutely seen people market it that way. And that, to me, is wild. Like, would never do it. But I don't deal in friends and family regardless. So, me.
Anything to add,
I just
Nick?
saw Bobby's comment. Squeaks, the meaning of life is Dan. Good stuff.
Good stuff.
Mr. Walrus, you're right. I have to comment on this too. Squeaks always thinks the man's watching him. I like it. Dude, I am. I'm risk averse because I'm comfortable in life. I'm happy with where I'm at. Why risk it? You're probably right. I probably pay too much in taxes. I probably am too paranoid about things, whatever. But you know what? I sleep well at night and for quite a while usually. And you know what? I know that I will still be around years from now, hopefully, and things will be good. That, like, to me, it's not worth the risk. Like, it isn't. And I get it. You know, taxes are bad, and it's you know, taxation stuff, blah blah blah, whatever. Like, to me, I'm just not. Again, if all of that is like how thin everything is for me, I gotta call it, and I need to just go get a standard 9 to 5, whatever. You know, like. It's just not worth the risk to me. So, yeah, I do always think the man's watching me. That's why I try to dot my I's and cross my T's and just lay low. At IRS, at FBI.
Dropping the tags in the chat. Trying to find the next question. A lot of very active chat. Nice to see. But the questions are very well spread out.
3:11. That means that we need the 3 p.m. likes right now. Get the likes on the video, baby. 3:11. Can we hit 311 likes right now? If we hit 311 likes, I'll take all my clothes off right now on this video.
Oh, God.
Hey, give it your best go, chat. I believe in you.
Some bot swoops in, our view count goes to 1,000 and it happens.
Buying likes right now on Etsy or something, or not Etsy, Fiverr. Buy YouTube likes.
Oh man.
Hey guys, this was the 49th PokeFlipz podcast and also the last. So it's been great having you. We really appreciate it, and
it was a good run.
Make it to number 50.
Squeaks can't play Grand Theft Auto. He tries to declare all his income. Okay. I will tell you something. This is you wanted my deep dark secrets, Dan. You said they're coming out. When I would play Grand Theft Auto, I'd be the guy that would use the cheats and get all the grenades, throw them off top of the buildings, cause a ruckus, whatever, right? But there was one thing I would always do. I'd try to find that really nice car. And instead of just going as fast as I could, I'd always try to stay on the right side of the road, stop at the stoplights, do everything so that my car would never get damaged. Dude. So yeah, dang. I can't even believe I'm telling you guys this because everyone's gonna roast me on this. But yeah, I did not play Grand Theft Auto correctly. I don't think.
No, that's not how you're supposed to play it.
Oh yeah. But hey, I had the nicest, mintiest car in that game. So
that's true. You're supposed to wreck them, and then when it gets destroyed, that's when you just steal another one.
Yeah, you just grab another one.
I know.
Okay, it took me a while, but I got all the way to 3 p.m. So we're only 13 minutes behind chat now. I probably missed some questions. Feel free to drop them again if I missed them. I apologize. But Blake asks, when looking at your long hold items, is there a year-over-year growth point where it's slowed down that you feel it's time to sell, or do you look at the bigger picture and stay the course with a slowdown or down year?
Good question.
It is a good question. I think it's one of those that falls into the pile of like looking for a rule of thumb, and rule of thumbs just really don't ever work. There is a general trend though that pops up in certain items, they'll kind of have a good, nice price trajectory, price growth, and then they'll plateau. And obviously, if an item's going to go and plateau, in hindsight, that's always when you can figure it out, right? If an item's going to grow to 300 and then it's going to just slow bleed 10% more to 330 over the next 5 years, you would go back in time 5 years and you would sell it at 300 instead of holding it additionally for an extra 5 years to 330, right? It all depends on the fundamentals of the item, though, and what I think that trajectory will look like. Do I think that plateau will hold? Do I think it will retrace from there? Some of it comes down to cash flow, too. Like, I had fairly tight cash flow late last year, and Evolving Skies was just like super low hanging fruit for me. I pretty much sold it all. I have a couple boxes laying around, but Evolving Skies was like, yeah, this is well within the two-year reprint window. I think it's going to be reprinted. Whether or not it gets reprinted, I mean, I know I'm talking about the meme Evolving Skies reprints, but just as an example, it applies to this question. It all depends on my cash flow. It depends on the item. It depends on broader things around it. There's no rule of thumb. That it's just like, if this thing 2x's within Y amount of months, I'm going to sell Z% of that item. That's just not a thing ever.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I am. I usually set price targets for things when I buy them that, like, you know, I try to do like, I'll sell X percentage at this price point, X percentage at this price point, and then obviously you reassess after X amount of time of if it hasn't hit certain price points or certain thresholds, is it worth continuing to hold? If I do sell it, do I have other things to put that money into versus just having the money sit there doing nothing? And X, Y, and Z. And there's no general rule of thumb. It's sometimes it's just a what feels right. You know, I've had things that my price target was across X amount of time, and then it hit that price target in 6 months, and it was like, man, do I really sell this right now when I've only given it 6 months? You know, and a lot of it depends, right? Like UPCs would be a good example. I don't want to use Evolving Skies because it could get reprinted. I don't believe the UPC, the Celebrations UPC, probably will, and that hit my price target, you know, well early on into that cycle. But it's also like, now it's not going to get a reprint. So did I just incorrectly attribute that price target? Did the market do something that I wasn't expecting? I think it was a combination of both. And so then you reevaluate. The key is to not continue to always reevaluate to where you're never actually taking the actionable play then and selling out. And then you end up missing sometimes and getting in a situation where you never sell. So it's an ebb and flow. And the more you do this stuff, the more you'll learn that ebb and flow and where you like to keep your cash basis at and your liquidity and your safety net and things like that.
This is one thing that I'm even still I'm terrible about this. For me, it's always like, it has to do with like cash flow and how much cash I have on hand, but I don't really set stuff aside that I think I should hold for X amount of time and it'll be worth X amount in this amount of time. My whole thing is either it's in my personal collection, I really enjoy it, I'm not going to sell it right now, or it's in my inventory, it's going to be getting listed on eBay at some point whenever I'm actually able to get to it. I have semi-recently started setting aside like modern product booster boxes, stuff like that I'm wanting to hold for the long term. But even then, there's really no like price point that I'm comfortable selling those boxes for. It's just I'm holding on to them for now. I don't have like a set end goal. Like, I paid $86.50 per booster box. So when they get to 160, am I going to sell them? I don't know. Maybe if I need the cash at that time, I'll sell them. If I don't need the cash at the time, I'll probably hold them. That's one thing that I've really never been good at with Pokemon, is the whole setting stuff aside, letting it kind of mature, and then reach that target price point, and then list it on eBay. It's always get something in, list it on eBay, rinse and repeat.
Do you not struggle, though, with like, okay, you just said there, I bought it at $86.50 and then it hits $162 or whatever. Like, am I going to sell it? I don't know, right? That was always my struggle, is if I didn't set some kind of a price target of like, okay, well, I'm at least going to sell like X percentage off, you know, maybe it was the percentage that would recoup my initial investment or whatever, then I just don't sell, right? And then you run the risks of things like reprints, or people don't care about it anymore, or X, Y, and Z, right? And to where, or you run out of cash flow because you didn't sell anything, and now you're like forcing yourself to sell it under market to like recoup cash flow. Like, there's a ton of options, right? But do you not does that not affect you, or do you just like
No,
I guess I just want to know more, right? Because like to me, I feel like I need some of those targets to like make those decisions and know that I'll actually stick to them.
yeah, I'll add the product that I'm keeping is not a lot. Like for the vast majority of each thing that I get through distribution is being opened, sold, whatever, almost immediately. I will set some product aside for like the semi long term, like a year, 2 years, to have listed on my website and kind of slowly sell. But the stuff that I'm talking about long term is like 2 cases of Battle Styles booster boxes, 4 cases of Evolving Skies booster boxes. So it's between 2 and 4 cases of each Sword and Shield set, and I've already made a decent enough amount of money on each of those sets where I'm not concerned about the $1,200 worth of Battle Styles booster boxes that I have, and then each subsequent set. So it's small enough where it doesn't matter as much to me.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Because like for me, I definitely have that, right? Like I think I have 2 cases of Brilliant Stars left or something, and it's like, if they sell, they sell. If they don't, they don't. I'll just keep, Whereas, Evolving Skies, at its peak, I held back like 20 cases of Evolving Skies. Obviously, every time one box goes up $25, that's a decent percentage jump of the whole pie to where it's starting, and then you have to start thinking about, how do I actually get out of 120 boxes of Evolving Skies at these price points and things like that, to where like I feel like I have to have those targets to start like making that jump. But I think, I absolutely think the amount that you're into something does matter on that too. Where you could be more susceptible to downtrend factors or things like that as well. So
yeah,
welcome back.
At the end of the day, so much of it comes down to just, it's a feel thing. And I know that's not like a super satisfactory answer. People always want a rule of thumb. Yeah, I drank that whole, I don't know if you noticed, but I had my lighting to match my Mountain Dew Spark that I was drinking. And I had to take a bathroom break.
No, you're good. Where would you rank Mountain Dew Spark on all the different flavored dews?
It's a good one. I honestly like the classic better than Mountain Dew Spark, though. I mean, I like it. I don't think any flavored Mountain Dew outdoes the original. Just the standard issue. I like Baja Blast. I liked Livewire back in the day. I can't even remember all the names of the different ones, but if I see a new one, I'll usually grab one of them or a 6-pack and give it a try. None of them beat the classic, though, to me.
Okay. Respectable. I mean, I have it in my top 3, but Spark's number 1 for sure.
Yeah.
Nick, do you like Mountain Dew?
I actually don't like Mountain Dew.
All right. Well, it was a great time here on PokeFlipz episode number 49. I appreciate you all showing up, but I'm out of here. So. What's your drink of choice?
Pepsi.
Pepsi.
Just
Pepsi. Wait, Pepsi or Wild Cherry Pepsi?
No, it's got to be regular.
See, if you want a cola, if you want a cola, you have to go to the other company, Coca-Cola for a cola, and Pepsi for their Mountain Dew.
As soon as I learned, like, I saw a thing that you can use Coke to clean blood off streets. I saw an article. It might not be true. Maybe I got clickbaited, but if that is true, that they use that to clean blood off the streets, that's it for me and Coke. That's all I'm saying. I haven't drank a Coke since I read that, and I never even fact checked it. I was like, you know what? Who would have came up with that in the first place? So yeah, I'm not. Count me out on Coke. If I'm wrong and it wasn't true, and I just got hosed by some article and Snopes didn't tell me better, then I guess I gave up Coke for no reason. But yeah, that was.
I'm trying to Snopes it right now. It's saying it's not Snopes, but it's a similar website. It looks like, and it's saying false.
Really? Oh no.
But it probably would work fine. Like Coke and Pepsi would probably both work, I would think, just due to the acidic nature and all the bubbly that it would be doing. It would probably work fine for that. But I doubt anyone's actually using it. They're probably
apparently so maybe. So there is a Business Insider article on this. here's how this happened. I can already tell you. So apparently any carbonated soft drink contains carbonic acid, which then is good for utilizing to clean stained blood, right? So someone thought, ooh, we could smear campaign Coca-Cola by saying they use it to clean blood off highways. That's probably what happened.
Yeah.
I got baited. Welcome to the internet, everybody. Don't just read the headlines. But Pepsi's better anyway, so it's okay. But I do like a Jack and Coke, so I guess I never completely gave it up anyways, you know? So, yeah.
We've got another.
Look, we all learned something today, okay? Look,
yeah, there you go. There's your daily.
I never said I was smart, okay? I just want to clarify that. I never. Like, I'm actually, outside of Pokemon, probably one of the dumbest human beings you'll ever meet. Like just genuinely not like relatively low IQ. But I also am just willing to accept that about myself. So hey, freedom. There we go.
Oh.
Hey, you never know what you're gonna get. Invite me on here. I told you it was a risk.
Enjoying it so far, and
gave us fair warning.
We've got a little over an hour to go, and I'm looking forward to it. It's been fun. The Aussie Milkman says, when optimizing collection purchases, do you put aside low-value items with the thought they could be worth more in the future, or do you group them up in lots and still sell? Question for all. I don't know who wants to start.
I'll start real quick, because then I gotta go for a second. But for me, it's I'll buy a collection. I always start, say it's like a WotC collection, just a WotC binder collection. For me, I'll always start with the high-end cards. So that's the hollows. I'll sort through all those, break those down into what am I going to grade, what am I going to list raw, and then what am I going to just list as an eBay auction, which is normally just like your played damaged copies, stuff that I don't want to list as buy it now listings. So I'll do all of that, and then I'll probably go through the rare cards as well. So the non-holo rare cards, anything near mint, I'll list as individual cards on eBay. Anything less than near mint, I'll set aside for some point in the future. And then after that, I kind of just set that collection aside and tell myself that I'll get to it when I get to it. The past year or so, I've been doing that far too often and buying too many collections where I've built up like all of this extra stuff that I told myself I was going to get to, and I haven't gotten to it yet. So that's one of my goals for this year, is to get to all of that junky stuff that I basically set aside and forgot about for all of this time. But for me, it's always anything near mint and above gets listed as single cards on eBay or TCG Player. Anything less than near mint gets added into boxes, and I'll basically just get to it when I get to it. It's not so much as like I think these cards are undervalued right now. I'm going to hold them until pricing increases. It's more so just I focus on the high value stuff, and then as I have time, I'll focus on the lower and lower end cards. So yeah, that's kind of how I break everything down. How about you guys?
For collection, yeah, I mean, it just depends, right? So I generally have lists of pretty much every card that I think could be worth speccing on. And I usually make those relatively early on when cards release, and then just kind of adjust them over time. So if I purchase a collection that has something like that in it, that would be on one of those lists, I may hold it back the same way I would if I just went and bought the card raw off TCG Player or something along those lines. But generally, buying a collection, the best thing you can do is actually to sell the lowest items first, recoup as much of that, and then be able to like maximize the largest items, right? And to attempt to get as close to full value as possible. So yeah, it really just depends on the collection and everything like that. But I don't treat an item just because it came out of a collection really any differently than I would treat it if I was speculating on the card or something like that. I very frequently there's a lot of cards, I buy them at their market value, which I know is like crazy to say as a business, that a business would pay retail. If you sell on TCG Player, you've probably sold to me. But to me, it's more about being able to get things when I want them at the condition I want them, for the a price point that I'm pleased with, even if that price point is retail. And if I really grind it out, I could find it at 70% or 80% or whatever, which is why I generally actually work really well with most other stores, is because they're able to like make their margin or pretty close to, and I get mine down the road, right? And yeah, so I'm tangenting off of your question, but yeah, I treat the low value items the same way I would for any other spec. What about you, Dan?
Kind of like Nick was covering, I mentioned the Pareto principle a lot. A lot of times, very generally, 20% of the items in a collection will have approximately 80% of the value. So just to be as efficient as possible, I try to get those heavy hitters listed first. If and when there are two batches of items that have similar price ranges, I'll tend to do, like, if there's a hot potato in there, if there's one that I think short-term prospects, that card is just going to tank, I'll be more likely to list that one first and list the one that is going to hold better or might go up. I mean, a lot of times at the end of the day, I don't put too much thought into that, but it's just fairly obvious, second nature at this point, looking at two things. It would never come in a collection like this, but if I had like a collection that came in of 100 PSA 10 Sword Shield 50s, I would get that up listed same day. And if the other half was like, yeah, some PSA 10 Neo Destiny Uncommon first edition that was just way less likely to go up so much in pop, or I guess a more apt Sword Shield 50 is kind of late at this point, but like Scarlet Violet 1, the Japanese promo that's being paper handed to the bottom as we speak. I saw people memeing on that in the live chat a little bit ago. But so yeah, those are my general considerations. And then sometimes the collection buys come in so frequently that I really only hit that top 80% of value, the 20% of value items for the 80% of the collection value. Well, then the other collection comes in behind it. So not intentionally, just accidentally. That basically describes 2014 to 2020 for me. I would list just the top end to get my money back. I would get my money back. I'd plow it into the next collection. That 20% of lower value or 80% of lower value stuff would just accumulate over time, pallets and pallets, totes and totes, boxes and boxes, and that culminated in 2020 where it ended up working out. But yeah, that's how I go about it. Pretty similar to Nick.
One thing that you mentioned, Squeaks, that I watched I'm blanking on the name of the card, but you recently did a short where you bought a ton of copies.
Favor.
Yes, that card. I want to start doing that with each new set release that I open. Make a list of the cards that I think are going to do the best long term, and just kind of make that list right when the set comes out, right when I'm most familiar with the cards in those sets. And then go back to that list 6 months, a year from now, when everyone else has kind of forgotten about those cards, and start making some plays on cards like that. So that's something I'm going to start looking into.
Yeah, so speculating is like the bread and butter of what I do. It's my favorite thing. I mean, obviously I have the consistent sales and I try to buy all of the products that I need to carry to continually have income generating. But where I really will like make my margin and make my gains year over year is on speculating plays. And that'll take years to build up because you have to wait for them to mature. But eventually, like I have legend pieces that are maturing that I bought from Troll and Toad for $2 a piece back when they rotated out in 2012 that now I'm selling them graded, for exponential returns, right? And that turns over. And sometimes you have misses, sometimes you have hits. But the Misty's Favor is actually really interesting. This one, it pains me because I still think the card's grossly undervalued. But it pains me because when that set came out, I believe it was Unified Minds, I remember cracking the set, and I don't even remember how many I pulled out of like 20 some cases, but the card was like $10, like 2 days after release. And I remember telling my wife at the time, not only is this one of the best looking full arts, but in terms of like collection trainer, like the amount of people that like Misty, like it check marks every single box. I was like, man, I really shouldn't sell this card. Like, I should just hold it now. But we were going to have to do a move and buy a house. And like, it was like all kinds of stuff. And so I decided, you know what, I'll just sell them, I'll reacquisition them later. And then I kind of just forgot about it, right? It was on my list. I just never tracked back to Unified Minds, got very caught up in like everything with 2020 and Sword and Shield and the mayhem there, and kind of just forgot about that list, right? Like Gengar, Mimikyu, Altar, like, you know, obviously 2 extremely popular Pokemon on the same card, things like that, of the rarity type that is now I would argue the most relevant, prevalent rarity type. Like no-brainers almost. Like there's no such thing as no-brainer. Like obviously a lot of research went into that, but like, you know, the things that like to me, you check mark all the boxes on your research list, it's like, okay, that's a no-brainer. And I just forgot about it, to where now I'm paying like $100+ a copy that I sold for $10 less than 3 years ago. And it's just like absolute pain. And it's just like a reminder to stay diligent on that stuff, because if you're not, you end up in this situation. And like for me, I made the call right now. Buying those Misty's Favor, that might be wrong, right? This may be their peak, or they may just level out and kind of go sideways for a while or whatever, and that may be wrong. But I had to make that call. I couldn't sit and dwell on the fact that I sold them at 10. And the reason I'm emphasizing this is because it's that Evolving Skies booster box, or that Umbreon, that Moonbreon, for everyone out there right now that says I could have had that box at 90. I could have bought that Moonbreon for 175 to 200, and I didn't. And now they're questioning, should I buy them? Should X, Y, and Z happen? Are all these things going to happen? Because they almost feel guilty that they didn't go into it back at that price. You've got to cut off that past, and you've got to just assess it from where you're at this point moving forward, and make the best judgment call you can. And sometimes you're going to hit, and sometimes you're going to miss. And you've got to be willing to accept those risks. For me, Misty's Favor still check marks all those boxes other than like attractive price point. And to me, it made sense. So I went into it. I got lucky on that buy, because not only was it a real listing and the guy somehow had 22, but they were all packed fresh. So I'm assuming that seller just like must have cracked a bunch of Unified Minds recently or something. But yeah, to me, like that one was a little bit, it's bittersweet. It's great that I have a position of them now, but to know that I could have like had that same amount for the price I paid for 2 of them, yeah, that sucks a little bit. But so there's just more context to that short now. So
yeah.
And I think we touched on it a little bit ago with Evolving Skies too, but it's important to not the analysis paralysis thing, but then chasing, like there's always new cards, there's always new sets. Don't get caught chasing, paying 5 times, 10 times prices on something that's already gone up that amount. There's always going to be new ones doing that too. There's always going to be things that are missed. Look ahead, live in the now and in the future. Don't be stuck looking back, what could have been, what I should have done, this, that. Definitely keep it in mind. Like Squeaks remembers that card, remembers like kind of mixing up on that play. And that'll be in his mind every time a new set comes out, new card comes out. And he's like, I'm not going to do that again. So remember it for that reason, but don't remember it for like, oh man, what a bummer. I can't believe I did that. Like, and don't necessarily like chase when there's a decent chance that instead of buying that card at 100 after the 10X, there's probably a card today for $10. That'll be 100. There is a card today that is $10 today that will be $100 in 5 years. There's a lot of them probably. I don't know which ones, but there's definitely some. So buying the $100 one today and expecting that to be 1,000, there will be some of them almost surely, but way harder, way less of them. The 10 to 100 is a lot easier than the 100 to 1,000.
Yeah, and it's the equivalent of like chasing your your losses, right? You're essentially chasing the opportunity loss, right? And you essentially what you have to do is block out the fact that, like for me, that I sold tons of those copies at $10 a piece, and instead reevaluate this card from today's perspective at current price point, right? Like I'll give you an example is Sabrina's Suggestion, Erica's Hospitality. I've bought some copies of those that I never had back when they came out, because I didn't do Team Up and Unbroken Bonds because I was in the process of a move and I had taken time off and everything like that. And so I missed those cards completely. again had them on my list, but by the time everything from the pandemic and everything calmed down, that's when I finally got back to them. So I reassessed them where they currently stand in the market with supply conditions, graded values, everything, and looked at it from a new play. With all of that past, it's irrelevant at this point. It doesn't matter that Misty's Favor was $10 at one time. It doesn't matter that Sabrina and Erica were $10 at one time. That's completely irrelevant now. You have to assess forward, and then you have to assess that against like exactly what Dan said, every other opportunity you have in the market. Now, if you're fortunate enough to be in a position where it doesn't really matter what else is going on in the market, you can dabble in everything, then that's great. But for a lot of people, they can't. And so you do have to weigh out, is it smart to buy Misty's Favor at 120 with the hopes it goes to 240, or that you get good copies you can grade and sell them at 300, versus buying this other card here that I could get 10 copies of and it go to $100 and I 10x, right? And that's like weighing out the percentages of like, 1,000% versus 100%, whatever, what's easiest, liquidity, all that. But yeah, I absolutely agree with you that like a lot of that's going to depend on your own perspective, but don't get caught up in what it was in the past to make you think that it's a thing you should do in the future. At that point, it's a completely new spec with all new variables that you have to reassess from the ground up.
Eddie wants to know, Squeaks, since you're into One Piece TCG, do you collect One Piece Funko, or what are your thoughts on them?
I don't. So I have been paying attention to what has happened with the Chopper reprint. That Chopper, essentially, from my understanding, was vaulted but unlike the Disney vault, where Disney sometimes brings the vault stuff back out, like for movies and stuff. From my understanding, Funko was not bringing vault stuff back out, and then they did it with the Chopper Funko Pop, which has like been a big controversy or whatever, because they have like the same exclusive sticker, the Chase sticker or whatever. I don't know. I don't fully know it because I'm not really ingrained into Funko. So I do not collect them. I will be honest, and we want to talk about like somebody that like analyzes markets and everything, major miss. I was very bearish on Funkos for years. I still don't know that I'm bullish on Funko investments. I think that there's always going to be elite things in any kind of collectible category that has long-term staying power. And there's always going to be dangers, right? If my understanding of the Chopper is right, that's something that people didn't foresee being able to happen, almost like a Roaring Sky situation. And then it did happen, right? And if you were sitting on a bunch of those previous Choppers, maybe now you're in a bad boat or that type of thing. So I'm less bearish on Funko now, just as a company, because they've got their hand in so many IPs and have managed to stay so relevant. It'll be interesting to watch how they kind of adapt Funkos moving forward. Now they're doing like diamond variants and all kinds of things like that. They've got jumbo Funkos, all kinds of stuff. I think they've done a really great job as a company evolving from just standard size Funko Pops. And now you've got companies grading them and everything, and they're great for like getting voice actors to sign your favorite character. Like there's a lot of like collector appeal there, display appeal, which I think is really great. And if they continue to lean into some of that stuff, they'll have long-term staying power. So I was wholeheartedly wrong about Funko. In terms of Funko investment, I would need to do a lot more research, but I don't know if you were asking this just because I play One Piece and you thought, oh, it's cool because One Piece Funko Pops or whatever, or if it was going to lead into the Chopper question. But I've anecdotally seen a few things about the Chopper that I believe I have an understanding of. So yeah, those are my thoughts on it. I don't know if I even gave anything coherent there, but that's everything I know about Funko Pops and Chopper. So
it all sounded good. I have nothing to add
because it's more than I know about Funko.
Yeah, Funko and One Piece I know nothing about. I think I'm live in the chat. Problem is a lot of the meme questions get the prefix of question and they get the question marks at the end, so they stand out the most. The meme questions distract from the real ones, but I think I have everything. Feel free to leave your questions again in chat. We're here for the next 45 minutes till 4:30 p.m. Eastern time, but as of right now, we have no backlog.
I don't think that's ever happened before.
It's definitely
We
happened,
usually
but
always have like 5-10 minutes left.
Everyone's scared now. We shamed these guys' question. Now it's like, man, what if my question gets shamed? I'm not asking a question. Screw that guy. No, I see a question from Landon though that says, and it's a meme question. If Evolving Skies goes to 50, should I buy my first box? How long after said purchase will I be able to retire? But you know what? Actually, I do want to note there, if Evolving Skies went to $50 a box, that would actually be, or any set, massive red flag for the hobby. Massive. Because if you look at the eras where booster boxes went under distributor costs consistently and were selling like from stores, so Crimson Invasion, Roaring Skies, Primal Clash, Fates Collide, Steam Siege, those were not booming eras of the hobby. They were absolutely reflective of supply decisions that Pokemon the company made, and then had a ramification on the secondhand market long term and people's interest within the hobby. Because again, people don't care about any of this shit if they deem it doesn't have any value. So Pokemon does have a financial interest in making sure that people believe that this stuff will maintain value and preserve that belief moving forward, which is why all of these reprint things and everything like that, you have to start trying to understand the philosophy of Pokemon. We don't have to get into that. But if you start seeing $50 booster boxes that the distributor costs are now going to be $195, $105, whatever, around that range, and you're seeing $50 booster boxes, you've got a lot more to worry about than your Evolving Skies investment. You need to worry about the integrity and long term of the hobby as a whole. That's what I would see.
that's
So
the
I know
nice
you're
thing.
memeing, but there's a serious
That's the nice
answer.
thing about meme questions. You can usually turn them into some kind of an actual conversation. My meme reply in the comments was wait for 48. But honestly, if they go to 50, maybe you should wait for lower, because like the hobby has fundamentally changed. Something has broken, and that's like the nuclear scenario. But one interesting kind of additional meme reply I was gonna make: if it went to 50, nobody would want it anymore. Like, people want it because it's 300. It's talked about now because it's 300. If and when we get a reprint, the people that are clamoring about it being 300, some of them will, but a large part of the people that are falling over each other to try to buy it for 300, maybe 280, save 10%, no fees, PayPal, friends and family, whatever, those people won't buy at 120. Say it gets a massive reprint. Say I get 200 more boxes. Nick gets 200 more boxes. Squeaks gets a few hundred. Nobody would want it because it just went down 50%. That's trash. That's terrible. People are crazy. I had the
exactly
same.
how we ended up in this situation to begin with, right?
Yeah.
Evolving Skies did get additional product waves. The boxes at one point fell all the way down to like $90, and it was a very blip in time for the average consumer, probably like $100. But $100, that opportunity existed, but then nobody wanted it because it's like, oh, $100, there's more supply. Now is it really that good? I don't know. Now it's $300 again. Well, my God, are we ever getting any more Evolving Skies? Jeez, Pokemon, we've been asking for it since you released it, but you haven't been. And that's the problem. Everyone wants to do revisionist history. We're seeing that in One Piece right now, right? One Piece launched. Booster boxes came out. They haven't had a second wave. They've skyrocketed. And you're going to have I'm going to show you the exact ends of the spectrum. If and when they reprint that set, this is what's going to happen. Right now, booster boxes are too expensive and I can't buy into the hobby and I can't participate in this game. I'm just mad, and they need to reprint it. And then they're going to reprint it. And boxes are going to be $10 more than distributor cost. They're going to be everywhere. And then it's going to be, oh my God, these boxes aren't worth anything. Is this game dying?
Yeah.
That's going to be your perspective.
And because it's very analogous, I just want to bring up MetaZoo. I know it's not for everybody, but like the initial thing with MetaZoo, oh my God, it's just intentionally scarce print runs, blah, blah, blah. It's all artificial scarcity, whatever. And then for the first few sets getting off the ground, like that's the way production is going to work. You're going to have to ramp in. You're going to have to ease in. You're not going to print 100,000 Kickstarter boxes not knowing if anyone will buy it. So they printed 2,500, then 25,000, then 50,000, 75,000, 100,000. 100,000 was too much. Then it's like, oh, it's garbage. Nobody wants it. Like, no, that's just like learning how to produce, how to launch a TCG, the ebbs and flows. So immediately the sentiment goes from like, oh, it's just artificial scarcity, stonking, intentionally done, to now it's like, oh, what garbage, dummies, they overprinted it, blah, blah, blah. It's just noise. Like, people put out a lot of noise, and at the end of the day, you gotta just, you gotta make your own opinions. You gotta analyze the data yourself, but not overanalyze it, not analysis paralysis, but you just gotta make actions based on your hopefully well-educated opinions and thoughts on it. That's all you can do.
And it's a balance, right? These companies need to balance it. They don't want to, like, everyone's like, oh, well, they can sell more, so they're definitely going to print it. No, Timmy, they're not going to print more, because you know why? Because then nobody's going to value it anymore. And then their brand is devalued, because on future sets that they try to sell, people are going to assume that no one's going to want them. Do you ever wonder why Ultra Prism was one of the shortest print sets in the Sun and Moon block? Because everyone tried to cancel all their distributor orders with Crimson Invasion. Pokemon's like, whoa, all these distributors are mad at us now. We better not print that much or we're going to kill our own brand. So then they rained off of it. Then everyone's like, whoa, there's no Ultra Prism. We can't get any of that. Why didn't you print more Pokemon? It's a balance. And like, I truly do believe that Pokemon has learned from some of the like supply decisions that they've made outside of their standard norm with like Crimson Invasion, Roaring Skies, Steam Siege, all of those. I would like to believe that, which is why, to me, this period that we're experiencing right now isn't an indicator of reprint or no reprint, but a sign of caution of let's see how it plays out. Are people still clamoring 6 months from now to get this? Or was that a temporary blip in time because the next set hadn't released yet and they haven't had product for 3 days? And so they're losing their minds fiending like they need a fix. Like they're trying to figure it out. And they can also drip feed product other than just booster boxes, right? Evolving Skies packs, 36 of them do not cost the equivalent of a booster box. 36 Brilliant Stars packs do not cost the equivalent of a booster box. The only thing that you have shortage of supply right now is booster boxes. You don't have shortage of supply of the packs or accessibility to the set or the singles, because they're all accessible through tints and collection boxes and ETBs and everything else that has been readily available for quite a while. The only reason that people are clamoring to get these booster boxes now is because they have extreme value, and Pokemon is very aware of that. And if they reprint into that just because of that and tank that value, all they do is risk doing long-term damage to the value of their IP as a hobby and how people deem how valuable it will be in the future. Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah, and this is I mean, you really touched on it, but to say it more plainly, Pokemon can overprint. Like, people just don't believe this, but anything can be oversupplied. Pokemon printed 9.1 billion. If it was 91 billion, the hobby would be extremely damaged and maybe irreparably damaged. With the younger IPs, with MetaZoo, obviously the number's way smaller. 100,000 boxes was too much. Pokemon's doing boxes in the millions. I mean, 1 million booster boxes of a singular product, that would equate to 360 million cards. Clearly, 9.1 billion a year, it's pretty reasonable. We don't know the split of languages. We don't know the split of supplementary product decks and the theme decks and the World Championship decks and things like that. But it's very reasonable to assume that the print run for Pokemon products is in the multiple of millions of booster boxes, or at least booster box equivalents of packs. And that wasn't enough. Like, that wasn't quite enough. We're in a healthy space. But if Pokemon went just absolutely nuclear, if for some reason they went full short-term gain, long-term pain, and they just were like, let's fully print, they could print too much. There is a number for every set. There is a number for the hobby as a whole that is too much. That would make this stuff go sub wholesale. It would make these boxes go $79.99 on eBay. It's happened over the years. It happened in 1999. This IP, this whole thing was born into that. I mean, 99 to 01 was a massive bubble. Boom, bubble. That busted. And in 2003, 2004, these boxes were $30 to $40. Hopefully we never go through that again. I like to think that Pokemon is smart enough and wise enough to look at the indicators, look at the market. They definitely care about and are aware of the secondary market to an extent, because they do not want $30 Evolving Skies booster boxes, as there was base set unlimited booster boxes. But yeah, just
well,
yeah, go ahead.
Point, right? Pokemon took over back from WotC. WotC used to produce Pokemon back in the day. They took it over for a reason. Now we can all speculate why they took it over, licensing, blah, 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 whatever. But like, there had to be some level of like, hey, we have this wildly successful franchise, but yet here this demographic of product that we have that was wildly successful for 2.5 years is now almost like dead in the toilet. was that a contributing factor to them saying, actually, we're going to take the licensing back. You can do your like fan appreciation tournaments, whatever. And then we're going to try to revitalize this thing from the ground up and start over. Right. And like, I have mulled that over a lot was the current state of the direction that things were headed in terms of pricing, people caring about it, etc. And was that WotC's fault? Right. I don't know that it necessarily was when you have pandemonium and then it just cools off. Right. But to some degree, they felt the necessity to take this back under their own helm and take it away from essentially the company that was the only company that did card games, really, or at least successfully on a long-term basis. And so, like, they absolutely care, right? But I just wanted to go back to like your point of like that whole thing, because like people like forget that changeover happened, and like I don't think it gets talked about enough that like. There was a point in time where Pokemon deemed they needed to have the reins of this thing for some reason or another. And I wouldn't be shocked if you told me that the current market climate and the direction they saw it going was a contributing factor to that. And maybe it wasn't, but like all we can do is speculate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I never thought about the whole Pokemon taking over from WotC like that. That's an interesting point right there.
Go to Hills Wholesale Gaming on the Wayback Machine and take a look at those prices. I talked about it in a Patreon thing a few months back, but Rusty recently did a video on it too, where he showed it in $30, $40, $50. Base Unlimited, the same boxes that peaked at $30,000, $40,000 in 2020, the same boxes that are currently $12,000 to $15,000, depending on where you're looking. Interesting.
Also, before we jump into Aitson's question up here, I saw you just put it up on the screen. Yeah. I saw someone had asked a few times about the Naruto chase card, like what the peak chase card is. It's probably the 20 alternate arts from set 20, Tales of the Gallant Sage. And if it wasn't that, there are these cards that are lesser known about that were Naruto character cards that were given out. I believe they were at regionals, and they have a super rare foiling pattern when the original art of that card didn't. So that's how you know that they only came from there. And they actually have Kishimoto signed. They're all signed by Kishimoto, like with Silver Sharpie. And they are personalized to the people that won them via, like, I think they were giveaways or contests or whatever. And that's a good way that you can authenticate them, because that foiling pattern doesn't exist anywhere else. So like it's not like you could just go get another Naruto card and forge the signature. And there are a few of those floating around. I think most people, even most diehards in Naruto, don't even know that those exist. To me, the signature value alone, I still would want to authenticate it, obviously, but that signature value alone, I think, is far superior to any card that you could absolutely get in Naruto at all. You combine that now with the fact that it is on a card, popular character, unique foiling pattern, and everything. To me, it would outpace any of the alternate arts, including the Pain Itachi, which I think on Heritage might have sold for like over 10,000. So I would think that the Kishimoto auto would be above that, because his autograph is also relatively difficult to find, like a provenance copy with authenticity behind it. So that would be the peak. But I just want to make sure that person got their question answered, because I think they've asked it like 3 times. So
I just realized too, I had the one that I pull from for the highlighted question, I had on top chat. So I'm now on live chat. Hopefully I won't miss as many. But again, some amount of it not being highlighted in the top chat, some amount of it just falling in with the memes. I apologize for not getting that one. So yeah, Aitson asks, how diversified are you into other collectibles, or are you solely bag holding Pokemon and or TCGs? Me personally, I guess I'll go quick to start. I have some Steins, past inventory, past collection from when I used to do that. I guess I have some amount of video games, same deal, and then some amount of coins. I used to buy and sell all that kind of stuff. I have totes, boxes, I have Whitman and coin folders. I have various stuff kicking around. Not anything too significant. My non-Pokemon, non-TCG of like currently what I'm transacting in for business would be less than 2% probably of what I have for inventory in Pokemon and TCGs. But I diversify heavily. No surprise anyone that follows my channel, as far as in like traditional investments. tax advantage accounts. I don't need to go into that, but I talk about that a lot in my videos. How about you guys?
For me, it's the vast majority is Pokemon. I don't do anything else with other TCGs. It's just Pokemon. But then the other thing for me is coins and silver. Like I mentioned before, I used to do a lot with coins since my dad owned a coin shop. So I have a decent coin collection, and then I've been buying silver every year. So I'm a silver hoarder. So I do have a decent bit of that as well. But aside from that, it's really just the coins and Pokemon for me.
Yeah, and I would say for me, I mean, Pokemon is a large part of what I do, or Pokemon and video games. Outside of that, though, I would say probably 10 to 15% of what the store owns is in other things. I have a few high-end books, some art, various other collectibles, things like that were more, diversification within collectibles is kind of a meme because the market itself is generally most of them are all going to move in tandem. But to just be outside of Pokemon a little bit, or outside of video games to some degree. So, but even just outside of Pokemon or TCGs, I would say probably 30% at that point, because I actually do have a substantial amount of like graded video games and high-end consoles and things like that are I would say obviously not in trading card games. So
I just got to say, Mr. Walrus says to Nick's little comment, he's like, I have Pokemon Gold and Silver too. I see Nick replied to him. Nick replied to him in chat. I think this is mostly a meme question, but I'm going to bite and I'll just give my short little response to it. Javal says, question concerning the hobby in general, do you think it'll go up or it'll go down? I am short on plastic, long on cardboard, personally.
I could have quoted what you were going to say there before you said it.
Yeah.
I've heard you say it before. Short on plastic, long on cardboard. Yeah. Yeah, I'm bearish on the hobby as a whole in the short term, bullish long term, because I believe Pokemon just has a very, very ear to the ground approach to their brand and intellectual property, and I think they're extremely good in putting their fingers in everything, and keeping themselves relevant even through down periods. I do think, though, that a lot of my bearish in the short term is more reflective of just overall market climates of the world and what we're seeing with global economies, U.S. economy, Europe economy, etc. So I know people don't think that stuff really impacts a lot, or maybe some don't. I don't know, but I think it does a lot more than what people think. And just like how we ask the question all the time, who's buying this stuff? Are the same questions of who's racking up debt to buy Pokemon cards and who's doing whatever. But then you see all kinds of crazy stuff where people tried to take out PPP loans to buy Charizards. Like, don't put it past anyone to do anything. So yeah, I think we just had a massive period of growth. That's not me saying that there won't be opportunity. Opportunity lies in any market, up, down, or sideways. But in the short term, I would lean more towards bearish than bullish. What about you, Nick?
Yeah, I'm confident in Pokemon long term for sure. I do agree with you in the short term. It'll be interesting to see what happens, more so because of like the overall economy. Obviously, if we go into another recession, collectibles is going to be the first thing that people stop buying. So short term, it'll be interesting. Long term, I think it's here to stay. I don't think Pokemon's going anywhere in our lifetimes.
Geeks Galore 209 asks, is it bad to look for inventory at LGS's, eBay, and big box stores while not having distro? I've been able to trade singles to my LGS for sealed product that I'm hoping to start flipping. It all depends on cost, and for a lot of items, let's point out the Charizard UPC in particular, it's actually obtainable for less than I paid wholesale. There's a decent amount of items out there that just are available. Check out P Football Pete on eBay. Check out sometimes right on TCG Player. There are things that just go sub wholesale or at least really close. There's no minimum orders. There's no credit card fees on eBay, things like that. If you're doing it for profit, I mean, I've mentioned this many times before, you shouldn't be paying sales tax. You should have your reseller's license, sales tax exemption, whatever it's called where you live. It's all about cost basis, right? If you're doing it for profit, it's all about cost basis. So depending on what you're buying and the price you're buying it at, it can absolutely make sense.
I would also add, there's definitely some advantages to going to LGSs or these like conventions and physically being able to look at cards. Because you have the advantage of looking at the card and picking out the mint copies that you can send off to PSA for grading. Whereas on eBay, TCG Player, all that stuff, you can get pictures of the card, but you really can't get a good idea on the exact condition, where in person you definitely can. And LGSs, for the most part, really aren't integrating. So you could find some mint cards there every so often. So I would definitely say if you have a good LGS near you, definitely go check them out and see if they have any stuff that you could purchase, grade, and flip, or even just purchase and flip. I know I used to have an LGS near me they were getting out of Pokemon. So back when I first started 2009, 2010, around there, I would go to that LGS and I bought a whole bunch of their old stock in Pokemon, from single cards to WotC boxes. They didn't have this stuff out. It was more so set back because they weren't doing Pokemon anymore. But I bought a ton of my initial inventory off of them.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, creating good relationships with LGS's store owners and everything, like, can definitely have dividends. There's going to be periods where they have dead stock. There's going to be periods where they just have excess stock. All kinds of things. And I think the biggest key is just having a realistic perspective, right? Understanding your position within the transaction, right? An LGS owner has a certain margin that they're going to have to make. They have overhead, they have whatever, and that, maybe there's ways that you can incentivize them to giving you a better deal, maybe buying in quantity or whatever, or being willing to buy some of this other thing that they can't sell if you buy this thing, and, you can still break even on that or whatever, but just being realistic, I think is the key. If you go into your local LGS and try to buy stuff at 70% of TCG Player, that's not very realistic, right? To their business model. And truthfully, it's pretty disrespectful. So I think the big key is just like understanding your role within the transaction, but then the role that the other side is playing as well.
We got a couple questions that I don't think Nick and I will have much to contribute to, but Joe Cartwright wants to know what you think about Grand Archive and their upcoming release. And then G1T Landon wants to know, how do you feel about Yu-Gi-Oh! 25th?
Okay, so the first one, Grand Archive. So I am biased because I will be carrying Grand Archive. I kickstarted Grand Archive, and the company sent me a booster box to open on YouTube, which was super generous of them. I didn't ask them to. They just reached out and said, hey, would you want to open this? And I'm sure that they had seen that I kickstarted, because I kickstarted under the store's name. So I was actually, do I even have it? Oh, I do have it here. I was one of the fortunate ones that pulled a, is it a CUR? CUR. And these are numbered signature cards that they're doing. I actually got it graded by Beckett. And they're super rare and expensive, like everything else that's new in trading card games, apparently. But no, for that game, take everything. I wanted to give you the full context before I gave my answer, because I think it's only fair to let you decide if I'm biased or what I'm saying has any merit. I think they're doing a lot of things right as a new card game that I think most new card games struggle with, in terms of creating the correct relationships to get organized, play off the ground immediately, and having that structure built beforehand, and not just the structure and, we're going to run tournaments and here's the dollar amount, but having the venues, the organized play structure itself, the build out, the judge circuit, the rules compendium. Their website is one of the most gorgeous websites I've ever seen for a trading card game, regardless of its age. They have full card compendium up. Their art is fantastic. I believe one of the owners actually has a degree in art direction. I may be mistaken on that, but I believe I read that somewhere. Which if that's the case, it would make a lot of sense because they've absolutely knocked the art out and the aesthetic that they're going for. So I think they're doing a lot of things right. I think their biggest struggle is going to be far less. I think if they would have released this TCG at almost any other time in history, they would have had the Force of Will effect when Force of Will came out and just taken the industry over. Like not like overtaking Pokemon and Magic, but like been the thing everyone was talking about. I think their biggest struggle though is they're in very deep waters right now with tons of massive intellectual property card games getting created. One Piece. There's the new Union Arena game that's also being done by Bandai. Bandai's going to bring Battle Spirit Saga over from Japan, which is one of the most successful competitive card games over there. You have Disney's Lorcana coming out. You have every TCG that already exists and the million Kickstarter TCGs that will continue to be made into the future until that section of the market gives way. So with them having their own original intellectual property, trying to go against these juggernauts, it's just really difficult to capture market share. I would be really curious what percentage of their profits they're going to allocate to ad spend to continue to get themselves in front of consumers, to try to win that consumer base over. They've done a really great job of attending conventions and making sure that they can get consumers in front of their product to try to sell them on it in person. I think that that's a really strong base. It'll be interesting to see where they go from here. And then if they make any of the traditional mistakes that a lot of standard card games make early, not hitting 4 set releases in a year, having a bad print run, overprinting something, things like that, improper game balance, all of those kind of things. So there's still a lot of risks with any new TCG. I think that they've done an amazing job so far out the gate, but I'm always still going to have a level of caution with any kind of a new card game, but it's cautiously optimistic. But you know, trying to do an endeavor like that is it's extremely difficult and extremely risky. The success rate is for long-term 5+ years is very low. You know, I think they're doing a lot of the things that give them a chance at it, but at the end of the day, you know, sometimes those things that cause them not to be successful are just completely out of control of them as well. So it'll be interesting to watch. But yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Yu-Gi-Oh, I think that stuff's going to be printed into the ground. I think they absolutely know that they can cash in on it. I don't think it impacts the long-term stability of their business model because people do not, people do invest in booster boxes in Yu-Gi-Oh, but it's not quite the same. Like they've reprinted those same sets multiple times over, right? I think it was very much a design decision to do those same sets again instead of doing maybe some of the later sets that they haven't done, like the you know, the GX era and all that kind of stuff, because maybe you do risk, you know, you reprint Shadows of Infinity and maybe you do anger a good section of your core collector base and things like that. But I think that they know they can get away with it because they've gotten away with it 3 other times. So I think that stuff will mostly be print on demand and readily available, but maybe demand will pick up and gobble it up and then they'll say we're done. I don't really know. But it's not something that like I'm making a play on. I will buy a few boxes because I really do enjoy Yu-Gi-Oh! And crack it open and have fun with everyone on YouTube and Discord and stuff. But I don't, at least right now with everything we know about it, I don't see any kind of like speculation play or anything on it. But it's cool. I think it's a really cool set that they're going to kind of do booster boxes and stuff for the old stuff.
You have anything to add on those, Nick? I know I don't.
No, the only thing I'll add is I'm excited for the 25th anniversary Yu-Gi-Oh set. I'll definitely, like Squeaks, not be making a play on it, but definitely be buying some boxes to open myself, especially the LOB, because I vividly
You're an LOB guy, okay.
Yes.
I'm an MRD guy. Metal Raiders.
Okay.
Saw Dragon, you know, the Juice, Gate Guardian, let's go.
No, it's funny. I don't have too many memories like opening Pokemon booster packs as a kid, but I vividly remember opening a ton of Yu-Gi-Oh as a kid. So I'm excited to kind of relive those memories.
Maybe we should crack a box together, even if it's just like in private in Discord. Like we should hang out. I'd love to watch you rip an LOV box, dude. That'd be sweet.
There we go. I'm down for that.
I never got into Yu-Gi-Oh when I was younger. I have some from that collection I just bought, and I've consigned some, but No connection to the cards
Hey,
for me.
never too late. Never too late to have a fond memory. Come hang out with Nick and I. Crack some boxes. You like ripping stuff. You're a degenerate
Oh, I love ripping
gambler.
stuff. Oh, I'd hang
Let's
out.
go. Bonus,
If people
bonus,
were ripping
baby.
it, I'd watch for sure. But I know
There
some
you
of the hits
go.
just because I'm vaguely familiar, but not too into it. Alex had a couple related questions. How much monthly income should be put into collectibles, stocks, 401k, gold? 10% each, question mark. And then also, what do you think is a good percentage of value that you should be holding in collectibles versus in your bank account? Very, very personal questions. Financial advisor type questions.
There's no way
yeah,
you can possibly answer that.
I've mentioned it many, many times. We're all in the same arena, but we're all playing very different games, some by different rules. So in no way whatsoever can anyone answer that for you. There is no, again, this falls into the category of rule of thumb types questions. And this is one of the most egregious ones that cannot be touched with any kind of a, you can't just flatly say any number. Some family household who's earning $50,000 a year and they're spending $50,000 to $60,000 a year, they should put 0% in any of these things because they don't even have enough money for their daily expenses. Somebody who's earning $500,000 and they can live on $100,000 and they're saving 80% of their income, is it reasonable for them to have 10% in each, if not more? Absolutely. But like, yeah, very, very personalized. You would need to know so much more. I'm not a CFA, CPA, any of those things. Nor are Squeaks or Nick.
Yeah. Yeah, from a safety net perspective, I like to have like a year's worth of expenses saved back, but again, different to everybody. So
yeah, a lot of people don't have a day's worth of expenses in their bank account.
Yeah, I know.
Some people run it pretty tight.
Yeah.
Arson Hicks says Pokemon Scarlet and Violet sold more copies in 8 weeks than Sword and Shield did in 3 years. This will have a massive trickle-down effect into the TCG, in my opinion. Thoughts? One of you guys wants to start? I've been hogging first response.
You go, Nick. No, don't.
What a guy.
Oh, now we're at this crossroads. Fancy seeing you here, Nick, at this middle junction where we can't decide who goes first. Look, it's pretty simple. We just addressed this one kind of, right? Pokemon can put their hands in anything. They're really good at maintaining relevancy, even when certain aspects of their brand maybe are struggling or not as popular. I think it's great that Scarlet and Violet are crushing it. I think they're definitely taking the games in the direction they need to be taking them. Whether that will trickle into the TCG, maybe we might not feel the ramifications of that right away, especially just because I would say that we're more in a down period in the direction the hobby has went for the last, 12 to 18 months. But that could still have really positive ramifications down the road that, down the road, people may want to attribute to whatever the flavor of the month thing is, but it's actually attributed to this much bigger movement right now, which is that Scarlet and Violet's clearly cultivating a lot of new interest into the Pokemon hobby, and Pokemon as a brand. And that can always later convert to any aspect of their brand, depending on how well Pokemon themselves is able to direct that conversion. So that would be my take, is that it's definitely going to have some level of improvement and growth for Pokemon. Whether that trickles into the TCG will be up to them.
I don't know about Scarlet and Violet right now. I don't mind the silver border change and all of that stuff. But just what I haven't seen too much from Scarlet and Violet. But what I have seen so far, like the jumbo cards that we got in the Paldea boxes, the look of those cards, I do not like those cards whatsoever. What I've seen so far for some of the cards in Scarlet and Violet, it really nothing's like super stand out to me. Where Crown Zenith, it was such a massively popular set.
Are you a yellow border stan? Is that what we're getting at here? Is that?
No, I said I don't mind.
We've seen one set, and the only real difference is silver. In fact, to be fair, Scarlet and Violet's like the most solid core base set we've had in forever. And yet all I'm hearing is, damn, Crown Scene, it's a juicer, but that Scarlet and Violet just rubs me the wrong way. And the only difference is the silver and yellow borders. Are you just...
Nick's just looking for that buyout. Nick's got one foot out the door.
Hasn't been a standout for me for Scarlet and Violet.
Yeah, he's gone. He said they changed my border colors. I'm getting Jeff Bezos's boat in exchange for my business.
It's the beginning of the end.
See you people. It was a good run. Yeah.
Now, on the flip side, I will add, I am not a fan of change. Not talking about the borders, but like going from EX to GX, I was not a fan of that. GX to V.
I'm not a fan of change. Hey, I'm not talking about the borders. The biggest thing they've changed in the history of the hobby. I want to clarify, but also not a fan of change. Yeah, okay. Okay, guy. We see ya.
No, it's true. I like
You're convincing yourself, not us, because nobody... Put a 1 in chat if you're believing Nick. Put a 2 if you think he's a big old liar. All right? Yeah, let's see. Let's drive a little chat engagement, okay?
Oh, man. Do you have any groundbreaking thoughts, Dan?
I don't have anything of significance to add to that. It's too long-term, too speculative for me to wager. I think Squeaks covered it pretty well. Some amount of people will funnel into the cards, probably some amount won't. What broader worldwide effects will happen in the markets and the economies that might sway that further? Who knows? I do want to just give a 10-minute warning. Probably won't get to any new questions left in chat. We have a couple more here to work through. Again, if you have anything you want to bring up, Squeaks or Nick, for our last 10 minutes, we can touch on those. But if not, I can continue going through chat.
We got a couple 2s in there, I saw. Just wanted to clarify. Nick,
I don't like it.
I didn't see a 1. Not a 1 for days, dude. You'd think 1s were out of print.
2's definitely one.
Those we saw.
2's won that one.
Nobody believes me.
G1T Landon says, question.
All the 2 comments are just coming from the green shiz.
One person spamming. Outside of cards, what would you like to see come out of Pokemon? I think a lot of stuff. I love the Sitting Cuties. I love these canvases. There's so many great products that they put Pokemon on that I enjoy. I've got a bunch of children's books for my kids.
Pokemon bet on.
Yeah, that's like, I don't know what else they could make. I guess they could get into the NFT space, right? Everyone will love that. Let's get some.
They couldn't.
I want to get some Quaxley NFTs. I want to get some Quaxley serialized 1 of 100 NFTs.
I got one. You know, I didn't really know about this until like that it was a thing, but apparently people collect keyboards and keyboard caps and do customized keyboards, and there's like a whole market around it, and there's like exclusive, just like what we do with Pokemon, right? I would love to see a Pokemon keyboard with customizable keycaps where you could customize the whole thing with like your favorite Pokemon for any keycap. That would be sick. Pokemon do that, I'd buy. And dude, they'd sell so much because they'd sell them 1 keycap at a time, but it wouldn't just be 1 keycap at a time. No siree, baby. It'd be a mystery pack. They're gonna have different series. You can get different keycaps, never know what you're gonna get. Bada boom, bada bing. And then eventually they'll have the upgrade version of like the LED 3D,
the shiny
whatever,
version,
where your Pokemon evolve on the keycap as your type. Yeah, dude. Do that, Pokemon. Keycaps.
Mine would be I just thought of this with the question here, but a Pokemon pinball machine. I would love to own something like that. Not like one of those cheap like chintzy pinball machines, but like an actual pinball machine that you would find in an arcade. That would be pretty cool.
All right, Nick, you're coming to my house because I have a virtual pin, like a professionally made juicer virtual pin, but you can install tables that other people have made. Somebody made a Pokemon table. It's dope. Your ball like changes from like Pokeball to Great Ball to Ultra Ball. You like catch Pokemon and evolve them through the table. It's like a fan made table, but it's really well done. It has the music that plays. I'm sure it's definitely
that sounds like a YouTube short. Yeah. Come on, that's a YouTube short. Let's go.
Definitely.
Yeah. So yeah, you ever want to come? But yeah, I agree. An official table would be super sick because like official tables that are done by like Stern and stuff, or like Game of Thrones and The Mandalorian and everything. are so cool, and I could only imagine what Pokemon could do if they just like went all out with it. But you know, those things would be $100,000 out the gate because they'd only be able to make like 50 of them because pinball machines like don't get mass produced. You like that'd be such they can't. I don't even think they could do it.
Probably not coming anytime soon.
Yeah,
Don't expect
the
to see
logistics
that.
behind that would be a little tough there.
They made a chessboard recently, but that's a fair, quite a bit easier undertaking than a pinball machine.
Yeah. My favorite recent one was the partnership with Lionel to make the train set.
The train.
I loved that.
Yeah, that is a really cool. Again, a great example of like Pokemon finds a way to put their hands in everything, man.
Yep.
Not yet that pinball market though. We'll see though. We'll see if that happens.
That pinball market, Pokemon. We are waiting.
Nate G.
One of these days.
Nate G asked the stereotypical vintage versus modern question. Do you find price comparison of Misty's Favor to first edition Misty from Jim odd at all? Would be interesting to hear your thoughts on vintage rare cards in comparison to newer cards. I enjoy both. One thing I'll say that I envy of Magic, their most historic cards have rarity as well. One thing we do not have in Pokemon, if you look at the print runs of Pokemon, it's like a horseshoe. Early out of the gate, the earliest stuff, some of the most printed in the hobby. The ultra modern, some of the most printed in the hobby. In the middle was the low. So in Alpha, the Alpha Black Lotus is the pinnacle of Magic in so many ways because it's the oldest, most historic, most powerful. I mean, maybe not the absolute most of all those things, but it's up there in all of them. 1,100 copies, whatever the number is. In Pokemon, it's not quite as obvious because those WotC sets were printed so heavily for that 99 to 01 bubble. Absolutely massive print runs out of the gate. They are the most historic. They will always be the first, but they were printed super heavy. And that's one thing that just makes it tough. The pull rates were significantly easier. If you do the math, which I've done the math on it, some of the chase cards for some of those early sets were likely in the millions because it was a 1 out of 15, 1 out of 45 packs to get the Charizard from Unlimited. Gym Hero is not as bad as base, but definitely, like, I don't know the exact numbers. I forget. You said Unified Minds for Misty's Favor? I would have to look at my spreadsheet, but it is fairly likely, in my opinion, and per, not just my opinion, my actual slightly educated opinion where I actually went into the numbers, there are probably potentially less Misty's Favors produced than were first edition Misty's. Obviously not the attrition, obviously. Go ahead.
Yeah, but pull rates of full arts just inherently are harder to get. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. Like there are less Moonbryons.
Run. Yeah, you'd have to. Yeah,
there are less Moonbryons than base unlimited Charizards. I think some people don't believe that. It could go either way, right? There's probably people on both extremes, but the pull rates of some of these cards are so significant, even with print runs rivaling, if not higher, than some of that early out of the gate sets. There are less overall. None of the attrition, none of the decade of being worth almost nothing, going into the dumpster, going into the landfill, being graded out of the gate. The pop's way higher than the early stuff. But I'm just saying you need to be careful because the supply of a lot of that stuff was pretty high. There's a lot of it out there. It's just not as simple as it is in like Magic. Magic, Alpha, the rarest, the oldest, the most historic. When you talk about the Power 9, the most powerful, like they're just more obvious in other hobbies like that. And I kind of envy that. In Pokemon, it's a little bit more tough just because they were massively printed.
Yeah.
I agree with you there. And another hot take, especially coming from me, is outside of like the nostalgia factor. Like obviously we're all super nostalgic for WotC. I absolutely love WotC, but someone who wasn't around in the WotC era, why would you like WotC? The artwork for modern cards is so much better than WotC cards. So I can kind of see why these modern cards are becoming more expensive and really, really popular. They have great artworks, and like Dan was saying, they are on par to even tougher to pull than your WotC hit cards. How about you, Squeaks? You have anything to add to that one?
No, I think the main thing that hasn't like been fully beat to death on this topic is the print run comparisons. Other than that, I mean, everything comes down to like how many people in the hobby still have nostalgia for those things. Have all the people that wanted them already bought them? Misty's favor has the hype going for it right now. It's the current modern thing, condition, rarity, blah blah. Like, you know, like everything we've already discussed. So I don't think I have really anything new to contribute. I would say take everything any of us have ever discussed on vintage versus modern before, apply it, plus the new print run thing. That's not really even that new, but I haven't really spoke on it because I don't have all that data like Dan does. But, and there you go.
We are at 429.
They're both cool, though. They're both cool cards.
Yeah, they are both cool for sure. You guys have any final thoughts? Anything to wrap up with? Probably not going to take another question.
No, I appreciate you guys having me on. This was fun.
We very much appreciate having you on.
Thanks for coming on, Squeaks.
It was a lot of fun.
Oh, one final question is, are we going to see you at any Collecticons this year?
There's a good one.
Yeah,
Putting him on the spot.
Maybe, you never know. I do want to go to events. I do believe I'm probably going to go to Gen Con this year. I know I'm going to go to some of the One Piece Treasure Cups. It really just comes down to like how much I'm willing to travel this year, because I prioritize Gen Con just because it's kind of in my backyard. And it's where I get to see a lot of friends across the state and country and everything each year, because it's a rather bigger con. And Lorcana's going to be there this year, early access, so that's juice. And then One Piece, I actually want to play competitively and travel for it. So just in addition to that, and then trying to run the business and spend time with my wife and do all the other responsibilities in life that I need to do, I just don't know how much more time I can allocate to like traveling to stuff without it being a business venture. And I know everyone's like, well, it is a business trip, but like if it's that point, then I need to vend it, right? Which means I need to get the team together and I need to put everything together to do it and rent the booths and like, and now you're talking like a whole other layer to it. So I would like to, I wish they had one closer to me. My closest Collecticon is probably Kansas City, which seems like the one nobody goes to. Like, I hate saying that, but like, it seems like the one nobody's ever like amped about. And so I think they would be much better off, because they already have Texas, they already have Florida, they have California, I think, whatever. Is like put one up in Indy, right? Crossroads of America, okay? Put one in Indianapolis for us Midwesterners, or Chicago, you know, get one of those. And I'm probably far more likely to you know, Chicago is 2-hour drive. I can just like go up on a Saturday morning, hang out for the day, and come back. Yeah. So I more likely if something like that happened, but I would love to hang out with all of you guys for a weekend. I think that would be, I can't even imagine the degeneracy that would occur if we all hung out. So yeah, it would be a lot of fun. We will definitely hang out sometime though. Us, the whole community, everything. That'd be really cool. And I definitely do want to do it. So
hopefully one of these days
be a lot of fun.
We'll get to meet. That'd be great. But yeah, I forgot to leave them in the description, but I will definitely add them to it afterwards. Go check out squeaksgameworld.com, Instagram, eBay, all the socials, all the places. He's Squeaks Game World. Thanks for coming on again. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks, and we will catch you all later.
Thanks, guys.
See you later.